Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here for the February the 17th, 2021 episode. I am Nick here alongside Chris. We got a good chunk of manga to talk about today. That is how manga is measured, not in chapters or volumes or collected whatevers, in chunks. And so we have a chunk of manga to talk about today.
Here at Weekly Manga Recap, we actually have new measurement units for everything. Manga will be measured in chunks. Air miles will be measured in diddly-woos. Liquids will be measured in dumps.
Drowned children.
Okay, darker than I was expecting, but no finishing that joke.
Look, how many babies can you fit inside the container? There you go. It's a very scientific measurement.
So if you want to measure a shot glass, you can get
King's babies, because
if you want to use a shot glass, you'd be like, well, that's 0.18 drowned babies, because you can't get a whole baby in a shot glass to drown it, no matter how hard you try. You're going to break the glass. Or the baby. Both equally bad. We have nowhere to go from here, so we have to just go into the podcast.
I don't know why that part is the one that got me. Listen, these are very valuable shot glasses.
I haven't found these Sonic the Hedgehog shot glasses everywhere. And I don't know, they might not make them anymore. So I want to keep them.
Fast. Right. Chris, we have manga to talk about today.
Yes. We have quite a lot of manga to talk about. With a lot of significant chapters to talk about, a lot of discussions to be had.
I specifically did not reread anything today, so I'm trying to remember if you're right or not.
No, I'm not. There's a
couple that I know are important.
Yeah, I think there's a couple series that'll have kind of important discussions to them. So let's go into it.
Okay.
And Witch Watch. There's also that. So
Academia, chapter number 301, The Wrong Way to Put Out a Fire, part 1. So we left off last time with Rei, Shota Todoroki's mother, confronting Endeavor, who was feeling overwhelmed and down on himself because, he created a serial killer. That is a bad thing. And she seemed like she was about to kind of tear into him for throwing himself a pity party. And we start off this chapter kind of there, but we actually are in a flashback to start with, to when Rei and Endeavor first met, when he bought her.
Yeah, more or less.
It's he essentially approached her family wanting her to become his bride, which I don't know if we explicitly knew that was what had happened, but we knew that they had performed a quirk marriage. And so seemingly her family was just very happy that some great, popular, rich hero was, going to do this. Endeavor apparently did actually fall in love with her, because, there's a scene of them just kind of getting to know each other, and how he sees that she really likes flowers, and he's like, she's strong, but prone to melting away at the slightest touch.
Much like flowers are?
Well, much like ice, I guess.
Okay. Both analogies. Ice doesn't melt to your finger's touch unless it's an ice cube.
Which is a little bit.
Yeah, but a big block of ice?
No, the bigger the block of ice it is, the more difficult it is to get it to melt. Yes.
Yeah. I just don't know if I see ice as fragile. But, sure, whatever. Whatever analogy you have to use.
Endeavor has lived his entire life in, Florida, where if it snows, it's really shit snow. So it's like, what, this is snow? Oh, whatever, whippy snow.
It's gone. I don't even know how you build a snowman out of this. They must be making that up. That's an old wives' tale.
A lot of dirt. So we begin again in the hospital room, and Endeavor is like, "Oh, Ray, are you okay?" And she's like, "No, I'm not. That's why I'm here." Which, yeah, makes sense. She saw everything happening on TV, and she was like, "Yeah, I gotta do something because this is messed up." We cut to their son, their eldest son, Dabi Toya, who is just kind of talking to himself on a couch somewhere, and he says, "That's a lot of burning. I can't feel a thing though." Which is kind of a terrifying thought that he's been burned so many times by his own flame that he literally can't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
It's probably a bad sign. Maybe you should not do that to yourself anymore. But he thinks to himself that he knows that Endeavor is not going to just die after what they've been through. He's too tough for that. But he's like, all right, he's going to make some sort of public statement soon. He's going to have to, and I can't wait to see his face when he does that. I've been waiting for this for so long. And he then lists off all the members of his family, although kind of interestingly, he refers to Endeavor as Enji Todoroki, but he says mom instead. It seems like all 4 kids prefer one parent to the other. But after he lists their names, he says, "Take a good look at me in the depths of hell." None of them are dead. Or are you just being dramatic?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Dabi's a dramatic bitch at points, so...
Well, he presumably has not actually matured beyond the emotional age of like 12 tops. So we cut to his childhood when Toya is like demanding that Endeavor do quirk training with him. And he's like, why'd you change your mind? Why aren't we doing this anymore? And Endeavor says, "This is for your own good." And we see that he had met with the doctor in the first of 4 attempts to genetically engineer the ultimate superhero. And it basically had almost the poorest possible result in Dabi's case. He has a more powerful form of Endeavor's fire quirk, but physically he takes after Rei. His body is meant to withstand the freezing temperatures of her ice quirk, not the super powerful flames of Endeavor's. Which, yeah, that makes sense given that what we've seen of his body and how it affects him and stuff. And the doctor then is just like, you shouldn't do this. This is I'm not going to advise that you keep on trying to do this genetic engineering shit. So, but Endeavor is just thinking about All Might, and he's also thinking about some of... I'm not sure if it's encouragement he specifically directed at Toya, or just a thought that was in his head of, "You can surpass All Might, Toyo." Time goes by. We see Toya not only would vent to Natsu, he apparently also vented to Fuyumi, and he's just like, "I don't care that I get a little bit burned when I use my quirk. I can take it. I know I can." And Fumi's like, "I mean, I don't like it when you hurt yourself." And he's like, "Well, whatever. You're a girl. You don't care."
Which I was like, I was like, I don't know if that's meant to be indicative of like the environment Toya is like raised up in. Because I guess, did he ever train Fuyu to be... Well, I guess the quirk just never really worked or whatever.
Well, if she has the ice quirk, then... And not the I don't know. I mean...
Regardless, I don't know if that's supposed to be indicative of like the household environment was not conducive to like encouraging women, or if it's just Horikoshi is not very good at encouraging women.
I mean, he is a kid, so when an unfortunate fact is that the gender separation between boys and girls is weirdly encouraged at a younger age, and I have no idea why. So anyway, he says, "I've got it in my head. I got to surpass the other guy. Dad's the one who lit that fire under me." And when we see a private conversation going on between Rei and Endeavor, and Rei's actually taking the side of like, you can't, just tell him to give up on this now. And Endeavor is basically at the point where he is realizing that he should not have pushed Toya to go down this route and told him that he needed to be the ultimate hero surpassing All Might, because he's not fit for it physically. And he's like, no matter what I do to him, no matter what I say to him, he keeps coming home with fresh burns every day. And he's gotten that stubbornness from me. So he basically says, this is the only way to make him give up, because he'll never, ever surpass All Might. More time goes by, and it seems like this conversation took place before Natsu was born, because that's the first shot we see on the next page is Natsu as a baby being held by Rei. More time goes by as Endeavor gets more and more frustrated as he tries to surpass All Might. And then eventually Shoto is born. And of course, Shoto has the dual quirks. And we see that this did not please Toya.
It didn't fix things? What, going back to the genetic well a fourth time didn't immediately fix the rest of the family?
Amazingly, Endeavor telling one son that the dream he had implanted in his head he wasn't suited for, but then he kept on trying to have kids, and he did have a kid that was physically capable of pulling out that task that he wanted. Yeah, made Toya feel like a discarded toy. So we see that... Ugh.
It's such a messed up thing that he stuck all of this into his kids, and that his thought process was like, well, if I have a super kid, then the other kids stop trying, and then they could just be normal kids. I'm the best dad ever.
I don't know if he specifically had that positive thought in his head.
He does.
Yeah,
he does
clearly at one point. Like, this is kind of complicating what we know about Endeavor's thoughts on everything that has happened in his family's history. And now we know that he did feel bad about what his kids were going through, and that he was the cause of it. But he didn't stop trying to do it.
He does specifically say he wants to have another kid because he thinks that's the only way it'll stop Toya from hurting himself. If he creates the perfect soldier, then his kid will just give up. And it's like,
no, you won't. Now you won't feel that pressure to do the thing that I told you only you could do. See, now there's someone else who can do it.
Now your younger sibling will be better than you from the onset. Older siblings love it when their younger siblings surpass them from birth, right?
And so we see that one of the first things that Toya did was go out and set a bunch of stuff on fire while he was crying and be like, no, I can do it. I can do it too, Dad. I can surpass him. See, look how strong my fire is. Look at me. And of course, this just upset Endeavor more because he was getting himself hurt more, burning himself, and he was... he did the ultimate parental tactic of grab them by the shoulders and shout in their face. This will work. You're a good dad. And he tells them, look past this. Just play with Natsuo and Fuyumi. Make friends at school. Look, there's a whole other world besides this hero stuff. You understand that, right? Just put this behind you, and it'll be a distant memory soon. But Toya says, well, the kids at school all say they want to be heroes. And I can't understand that, because I've got you for a father. Oh, sick burn, kids. And he tells Endeavor, you lit this fire in me and it's not going out. I can't pretend it's not there. Look at me. And fire comes from his body and he lunges towards Shoto, who is still being held in Rei's arms. And we cut to the present before we see how that turned out. As Rei says, you don't get to claim you're hurting more than anyone. You're not the only one who didn't really see him.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we agree that there's some messed up stuff going on in this chapter. What'd you feel about like how
the content of it?
Yeah, the story goes.
So I liked it quite a lot. I know some people have read this as somewhat of, I don't know how you'd phrase it, like not a complete like retcon, but like sort of like a revamp, or at least from a new perspective of the Endeavor storyline. Because the way we were kind of only ever told to it before, it was, from Todoroki's perspective, and then later his middle two children, basically shitty dad. He was the worst. Like the brief flashbacks we kind of saw, he was like the epitome of douchey father. In this, we could see that there is some level of concern, and I heard some people a little bit nervous because they don't really want like to make it like retroactively feel like Endeavor was less of an awful person. But I honestly thought this chapter did a pretty good job of showing that Endeavor was never a particularly good father.
No.
And like from the very beginning, he doesn't get his kids. They are just tools to him. And once they stop being useful, he might still have some vested interest in like, well, I hope they are okay or things like that. But he clearly does not do anything to actually make their lives better. Like it could have been sincerely easier to have just hung out with Toya in any kind of capacity, because clearly that's what he want, was the companionship of his father. But he's just like, nope, too busy, gotta train, you're worthless to me since you don't have the right quirks, goodbye. And you're just like, it's pretty rough. So I do get where some people maybe see it as a way that tries to, it doesn't redeem Endeavor, but it gives him a tiny bit more of a human element than he had previously in the flashbacks. Before, he was basically a Lifetime movie villain. Here you can at least see some measure of like, okay, he does care about his kids in some weird fashion, but he doesn't really get it. And he does seem to have some humanity for their well-being, but he never really truly addresses it. Can't see the forest through the trees. So I get that, but I still think that the ultimate point of this chapter, what it got across, was that he was a bad parent from the very beginning.
In a way, I think that you can read it and think, oh, are they trying to like make him like more sympathetic? And I think I don't know if he's more sympathetic. He's just more complicated. And I think it's a bit more human to have him have the thoughts of like, oh, well, my kids aren't doing so well, but if I just have another genetic weapon, then the pressure on them will go away. Like that's bad decisions. And yeah, like you said, like I mean, this could have all been avoided if he were just like a better parent and didn't have his kids specifically to try and overcome his hero rival guy. And yeah, I think that this is a good starting point for like setting up whatever exactly is going to happen in this conversation and come to the conclusion of, okay, Todoroki's got to go stop his older brother who's gone crazy. I do know the thought did go through my head while I was reading this of like, are they going to now say that Toya gave Shoto his burn instead of the thing where Ray poured it on his eye? Because I was trying to think of it as like, well, if he was a baby when he got burned, of course he wouldn't remember. But I was like, yeah, but he definitely clearly remembered Ray pouring it on his eye, and that's why she was put in mental care. So
I think he's gonna try to take out Shoto, and Endeavor might just fucking clown him like to protect his other kid or something like that.
Well, this could also just be the story of how Toya seemingly died.
Yeah, exactly.
He
could just burn out. I mean, that might be the thing where he seems to just kill himself in fire by overheating too much or something like that. I think there's a lot of interesting little details. It does make the Endeavor storyline a little bit more complicated, but, it makes it kind of interesting to read if you're into that sort of thing. I do think this flashback also kind of seems to indicate that Endeavor's patterns of behavior got worse as it went along.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can see that he is going further and further in his intensity to surpass All Might. And that might also explain why he seemed completely unrelatable when he was dealing with Shoto. But he has some kind of like relatability or at least human element here. So I think all that stuff does work. And I like the chapter a lot. I thought this made the story of Toya much more of a sympathetic tragedy that kind of complicates even your feelings of like, oh man, I kind of feel bad for Toya now. Like,
yeah. And also it makes his big reveal make a whole lot more sense if he was obsessed with being recognized and seen, that he put on this big show and broadcast it nationally.
Yes.
So, I'm interested to see where this is going. and I'm optimistic for right now. So
Yeah. I don't think we have any monthly series this month, do we?
nope. Kaiju number 8 was we just got the artwork for it, and then there was no like Boruto and
Okay.
World Trigger, of course, God.
So
We won't have it.
yes. So with that, we move straight into Eden Zero, chapter 130, Ocean 6.
Chris,
What?
it's your favorite thing.
It's my
Heroes
favorite thing.
series.
We get the big introduction to the new character group. But before we get to that, Nick, we have some new quirky character traits to work out. So let's get to that first. Remember almost bald, shaved-haired guy who had like the cage powers? He's now in love with Homura, as we see, because he's flipping through his photo gallery thing on his phone or data pad. I don't know what it is, but he's flipping through photos of Homura that I guess he took. Or surveillance cameras took. I don't know who took these photos, but he has a bunch of them.
They're all candid shots.
Yes.
And I know that they aren't even remotely sexual.
I mean, the first one is her in a position where her legs are wide open but framed out of shot. It's still one of those ones that's like,
okay,
I'd feel creepy having that photo on my phone.
This is, I think, one of the creepiest things we've seen in Eden Zero so far, honestly. Just the way that he is looking at his camera screen just makes me go, fuck off forever.
It would be a lot better if they just explained why those photos exist as well, because really, like, the first implication you have that is like, did he take these photos? Which makes this significantly worse. Big bulky dude's just like, hey, what are you doing? You're watching dirty videos while you're on the job, Creed. He's like,
no, I'm just staring at the woman that I want to put in a cage.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I guarantee we'll get that gimmick at some point. He's like, no, I'm just studying the Eden Zero. We gotta know everything about them. And he's like, the big guy's like, who gives a fuck? Nero and Elsie are in this galaxy. They're the big thing. He's like, no, I think these guys are mysterious. You should check them out. So the other guy gives his opinion. He's like, Rebecca, Beekeeper, never heard of her. Weiss, a guy from the past, 50 years ago? Wow. Miniature androids. The androids that used to work for Ziggy. What the fuck is this? And Shiki, the kid who inherited Ziggy's power. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's a good way to summarize most of the crew. I mean, they've picked up 4 new crew members since that scene, but you guys wouldn't know about that, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah, so he's just like, look, we got Nero and Elsie in this galaxy, and Ziggy, so like, yeah, they're a weird bunch, but we don't have time to fucking deal with them. Justice is over there talking to Holy, I think was her name. And basically, she's giving us the information of like, look, every one of Nero's top officials have assembled on planet Nero 1, also known as the Temple, including his twisted deadbeat son. And Justice is like, I don't care about him. And I was like, I agree, except I guess maybe you don't publicly know he murders women in his free time for fun. So I feel like you should, but maybe that information isn't relayed to you.
We've seen that guy before, have we?
Yeah, he was the guy with gravity powers who like gravitied women up to the ceiling and then like exploded them on the ceiling, I think, and then like let blood drip from the like ceiling or he crushed them. I can't remember. He used gravity powers to kill women. He's, a typical hero villain. And Holy's just like, you should. He's a real threat and Nero's old. So I like she says Nero is old and not Nero has a dumb gimmick that makes him not do things he probably should, but we'll get to that.
Well, I guess I'm not doing anything about this.
We get a weird shot of Holy in the bar from behind, which I guess goes to show us that Holy does in fact have a butt. So in case you were curious, if that wasn't the case, we do know that.
And the lore we're learning in this chapter, Chris. Holy, hang on, let me get on the Eden Zero wiki. Has a butt.
She does note, she's like, hey, Justice, you head over that way. Jaguar and Eraser are going to help you. I can't go because I have other fish to fry. I don't know who those two are, so we'll find out when they get there. I'll probably say, who the fuck are these characters? So we cut over to Planet Nero 1, the Temple. And we open with a man, this guy's hands as he's holding a bunch of dice. And And he says, "The ocean weeps." And we are introduced to a member of the Eration 6 Galactica, Emperor Poseidon Nero, as we get this full shot of him. And he has these squid-like tentacles that he has for hair and a beard. Not as good as Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean, but let's all admit that design was flawless from the very beginning. Nothing was surpassing it. So if you're going to crib from the best. And he gives his and he gives his little quote, "Though its tears be a drop of the blue cosmic sea, they will become a desolate darkness to reduce my flesh to ash." And already, I fucking love Nero because he is this pretentious fucking loser. Like, he has such a big, stupid speech.
Really like Poseidon Hero.
Like, his speech is so stupid. I was like, fuck yeah, it's dope. I love this guy. He basically is like, hey, forest has been violated at the hand of the Demon King Ziggy. So we get introduced to all the different members of the Ocean 6, the new group. So there's Callum Steelford, Lyra, Nisei, Miliani Lucra, Saika, and Fabiano. And Nick, I know what you're thinking. I
hate Nisei. I just want to get that out first.
Well, Nick, I know what you're thinking. All these designs are relatively decent for the most part. Good job, Hero. Well, that's a little bit of a thing. Hero didn't design most of these characters. These are all fan submissions. Well, most of them are fan submissions. I believe Callum, Lyra, Nisei, and then Boob fucking lady secretary. They're all fan creations, basically. That also had powers and things associated with them. Lyra, the girl with like the heterochromia eyes or whatever, she supposedly had dice powers, which I guess it seems like they just gave that. Like, Hero was like, I like that better. But Nisei supposedly had like the ability to like it basically Byakuya's power in, not Byakuya, Tsukishima's power. Was that his name? The guy with the bookmark.
Yes.
It basically seems to have that power. Like, he could alter people's memories. At least that's what it had in the OC version. And since he stresses memory so hard in this chapter, I assume that's his gimmick here too. He's like, yes, memory. If memories, desert. So we're introduced to all of them one by one. I guess the only things to really note is Miliani is, I believe, cradling an invisible baby, or otherwise just has very weird hand placement. And Fabiano seems to be remotely a decent person, because he seems to care about the people of Ao. So there's that. Poseidon says, "I wish to know Ziggy's true intentions. He was once a thoughtful man, a man I could call friend. What has happened to him?" And he starts.
Roll for insight.
Basically, he rolls for galactic insight. Shura, his son, is like, "Those dice are stupid. I don't know why you keep leaving the important decisions to them." He's like, "No, these dice will never betray me. They're how I built this empire." Everything comes up a 1, which isn't as statistically insane as you would think, because he's rolling a D6, a D8, and a D12, which, I mean, it is odd that all of them would come up as a 1.
About 1 in almost 600.
Yeah.
So.
He sees all of those, and his eyes go wide.
1 in 574.
Okay. You're so smart. So Fabiano's like, "What do your eyes tell you?" He's like, "Yes, our fate. We must obey." He stands up from his chair and he goes, "I will do nothing," and leaves the scene. I love it. We're introduced to this character, and he explicitly tells us, I'm just leaving now. I shall do nothing." He does follow it up by saying, "Shura, I will leave this matter in your hands." I guess this makes sense if you're trying to preserve the idea that the Eration 6 are all not inherently evil people, because we already are friends with Elsie and Draken Joe was defeated. So, like, make Poseidon a complex character and have him exit the scene so we can put the unambiguously super evil character in the lead. And
I like the idea of doing it. As to, rolling the dice gives him an excuse to not do anything. Yeah, it's weird, and depending on how you look at it, yeah, it can be really funny, but yeah, the very idea of like, this is just how he operates and this is why he is not acting directly, which is why Shiki and company won't get their asses kicked in this upcoming arc.
So Shura's assistant, Ijuna,
who needed more than one boob window on her dress or whatever that is.
I feel so bad for her because that outfit must require like a roll of boob tape every time to put it on. This is also a fan submitted original character design.
They knew what Hiro wanted.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why he picked it. So she basically does the transfer. Now the Erasion 6. There's too many stupid group names, Nix. Also, these ones have the same 6 number gimmick, so, kind of weird.
Oh, they're both 06s.
Yeah. So the Ocean 6 is now under the command of Shura. We see a bunch of different characters kind of have their reaction to it. Most of them don't have any kind of real response to it. Lyra basically is like, I'll do anything you order, but if you make it something pervy, I'll pass, which is like, that's a good character trait. Can't wait to see this evolve. But the one outlier is Fabiano, who just kind of watches silently. I guess the robot as well, because he's not an important enough character to say anything in a scene. He's just in the background of a shot. And then Shura...
There wasn't like a good character design to fill out the group, so Hiro was just like, fine, and pulled out one of his 300 robot designs that he came up with for this series.
It really is, because the first time I saw this group, I was like, I would say this is one of the better designed groups in a Hero series, at least for a while, because usually he has like 1 or 2 decent designs, and then a bunch of stupid ones. And this one, I was like, these are all really strong. And then I got to that robot. I was like, I guess that's the one weak one. And then I heard, oh, these are submitted designs. And I was like, oh, that's why there's not a character who's like, I don't know, like a giant egg with a big mustache who like moves around by like butt scooting around the room. And he has like spin powers or some stupid bullshit. And for some reason, he's on the same par level as like the dude who controls time with his 17 arms. So like, I don't know. I ran out of ideas.
I know it's important to, have some variety in your designs. Not be afraid to do weird stuff every once in a while. But yeah, if you take fan submitted designs, you're gonna get all cool and hot ones. Like, yeah, that's just what's gonna happen.
So it really makes fucking Saika or whatever his name is stand out for being like, I guess you're like discount Zenyatta or whatever. You're just like, all right, I guess. Who cares? Anyway.
I've got a kind of monk gimmick going, see? With the earring things.
I wonder if he downloads porn so he can figure out what fetish he wants to exploit the female characters in. I wonder if that'll be a gimmick in this character. He's like,
oh my god, what if the notes on the fan submitted characters had that as like, that's part of the submission form.
You had to explain what fetish
will this facilitate.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I've never done
mind control fetish again. All right, I feel like we've gone to that well before, but giantess fetish. Now that's one I haven't done very often. Put that on the books.
No, he did that too.
Oh no, he's done almost everything. I feel like he's very rarely surprised us anymore. Shura finishes the scene by doing the most evil thing possible. He puts his finger on a.
I'm literally trying to think of a fetish hero hasn't done.
I suppose I guess he probably hasn't really done vor. That's more of a German thing. So I guess he hasn't done that, but give him time. I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. Shura finishes the scene by doing the most evil thing possible. He puts a finger on one of his dad's dice and he uses his gravity powers to crush it, destroying his dice. And he says, I'm going to squish Ziggy like a bug. He'll be nothing but a beat up pile of scrap metal. Cool.
His dad comes back. Hey, those were custom ordered.
People are saying he has done vor, and I don't remember it, but I believe you. So, sure. He had Druvia get shrunk down and hang out in Gray's mouth. That sounds about right. Anyways, let's wrap up this chapter. We cut back to the Eden Zero. We see Xenolith basically talking about, like, hey, there was actually a reason Ziggy went after Forresta, and it was because of me. He wanted to basically make sure that I wasn't going to survive because he's afraid of what'll happen if I encounter you, Shiki. I can make you stronger. I will grant you my power. It goes off the chapter, Zila saying, find Ziggy and defeat him. As we see, basically, I guess the 4 big players currently in this, Shiki, Elsie, Shura, and Ziggy himself, although I imagine Justice and his group will play some kind of role.
Yeah, I mean, there's some decent stuff in this chapter. Overall, I wouldn't say it's good, but I do like I do like some of the designs in this group. I do actually really like the way that Lyra works. I think that the heterochromia and the way that it and her hair is really eye catching. But I don't really think that Poseidon's Shura.
Shura, yes,
that's his name.
Yes,
yeah. I don't find him interesting in the slightest. So yeah.
He feels like he's just the same kind of antagonist as the Dr. Mueller, whatever his name was from the last arc, where he really doesn't seem to have much of a character beyond insane sociopath who likes to hurt people. And I was like, but there's a villain of that variety in every hero arc, it feels like. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the most interesting thing about Shur was that he also had gravity powers. So, whose gravity will be stronger, Nick? Do you think it's going to be Shiki's?
Probably.
Okay.
Has he done bimbofication? Hang on.
No, probably not. Well, hold on.
Oh, then Witch Watch beating him to it. Sorry, no, can't get ahead of myself.
You know what? I think if I go back, I think he did do a thing where the women get dumber or more basic, I guess you could say, at some point. I feel like that did happen at some point. But at the same time, I feel like Hero has done everything, so...
Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm going literally through.
You're going through... Is there a collection of fetishes?
Through a list of fetishes. I'm like, no, he's done that. No, he's done that. He's done that. Like the only ones that I'm like skipping over are the ones that like he would have to have be in a porn mag to do. Wow, anything you could get away with, he's done that. I think so. Whatever.
Hey man.
Anyway,
sells volumes.
New manga.
Yay.
Let's move from talking about sexual stuff to getting into Elusive Samurai, which begins with a marshmallow hell shot. Like it just immediately boobs on a kid's head, just right, bam, there it is, boom. It's more restrained than a lot I've seen, fortunately.
Yes.
She's covered up. Tokiyuki has arrived at the Sua shrine that Yorishige was going to take him to. So he's being sheltered there. In Chapter 4, Sua, 1333. Apparently, the maidens who work there have been tasked by Yorishige with comforting Tokiyuki. And so they're like fawning all over him, and he runs away from them to start off the chapter. But before he gets very far, he falls into a pit, which Yorishige had dug up. And he's like, what's with this hole? And Yorishige's like, oh, I foresaw that you would flee this way. Because, in this temple, my holy power is at its greatest because this place is full of the divine presence. So I'll know anywhere you're going to go. So we get a little bit of a recap of the plot, and he says, today I'm going to begin your lessons in the martial and academic arts, which Tokiyuki doesn't want to do. So he's like, I'm going to run away. And then he falls into another pit. And Yorishige says, yes, the second time. In the future, this kind of repetitive joke is called tendon, because you get 2 pieces of tempura shrimp in your rice bowl, and it isn't funny more than twice. That's such a beautiful remark about it. Yorishige's daughter helps dig Tokiyuki up, apologizes on her father's behalf, and says, hey, he might say weird things and act kind of crazy, but he doesn't mean any harm. Don't worry about him. And Tokiyuki's kind of thinking about the position that he's in. He says, okay, I'm grateful for him helping me so far, but I don't really believe or trust that he has a realistic plan for the future. And this place is not a very large shrine, so it's kind of hard to believe that this place will supply me with what I need to defeat Ashikaga Takauji. We then see that Yorishige was fibbing about being able to tell where Tokiyuki was going with the pitfalls because he's just been having the two soldiers just dig holes all day.
Like everywhere, to the point where it's like, wouldn't he assume after he like falls into like 4 in the same like 5-foot square radius, and he's like, wait a minute.
So Kojiro starts to get a little bit critical of Tokiyuki, talking shit behind his back. And he says, I mean, he was spoiled when he was just, the heir to the shogunate, so he just runs away from everything. And Yorishige says, hey, you're being unfair. At heart, Tokiyuki is pure and honest. He expected that he was only going to be a puppet ruler, so he never set any goals for himself. He never recognized the importance of applying himself. And if someone is lacking here, it's me. I still have not shown him that I can help him to achieve his goals. A little bit later, rain is falling, and Tokiyuki's like, time to run away again, because that's what he does. And he's like, I know I'm supposed to be like studying tactics right now, but why bother? I can't put them to good use. There's no way I can do this. Yorishige, of course, anticipates that he was running away, and he's appears on the horizon ahead of him. And Tokiyuki's like, look, stop this. Stop trying to stop me. Look, I can do what you want without studying. And if your army is losing a battle, look, I'll just run away, right? That's what I'm good at, right? And Yorishige says, Tokiyuki, I swear by the gods, losing is not a possibility. After all, I am a god! That's very reassuring right there. Tokiyuki just gets disgusted by this, so this doesn't reassure him at all. So Yorishige then gets more serious and says, the rain is preventing me from showing you something. And so he takes out a charm. I'm not familiar with the terminology to describe it, but it's almost like a candelabra with bells on it.
Yes. And
he says, I will now clear away the rain. And we get some narration that explains that during this era in history, people believed in Arahitogami. Human beings worshipped as gods, and there were 3 that were especially prominent. The Emperor in Kyo, the High Priest of Izumo Grand Shrine, and the High Priest of Suwa Shrine. That individual fulfilled the roles of general, priest, and deity, a feudal lord of exceptional status. And as he waves the bells around, the clouds part, a literal choir of angels seems to appear and dispel the rain. And when the rain clears, there is a huge mass of soldiers who give out a huge cry right when Tokiyuki can see them. And narration concludes, the god Suwa-myojin resided within Yorishige, making him an object of veneration in this region. And Yorishige tells Tokiyuki that he summoned all these people this morning. They are a sect of Suwa warriors who revere Suwa-myojin, and their faith in me binds them together and gives them strength. Now do you believe me? You have a god on your side. One word from me summons 10,000 horsemen. Should you acquire the qualities of a hero and ally with divinity, you will gain warriors many times that number. So, what do you want to do? And Tokiyuki's like, I'll go to my desk and study. So Yorishige is very pleased in this, and Tokiyuki's like, yeah, okay, I'll believe this guy. He'll turn me into a hero. And Yorishige is like, all right, everybody, that's a wrap for today. Thank you. And all the people that have gathered there are like, why the hell did you call us farmers away from our fields? We had work to do. So it was all a trick again. And Tokiyuki gets pissed off. But Yorishige is like, okay, come on, let's go. You've got study to do. And a warrior always keeps his word. And as the chapter closes out, we get narration that just says, Yorishige understood Tokiyuki more than anyone and showed the boy a path to the future, thereby gaining an inestimable influence over him. Becoming a hero begins with sharpening one's teeth on a god. So I thought that this chapter was all right the first time I read it, but going through it again, I think I have a much greater appreciation for it, for the little touches that are in it.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I was kind of meh on it at first, and going through the recap, I was like, I enjoy it more. This is an interesting series because I feel like I enjoy it way more as we recap it than I do in the moment, which feels strange. But Yeah, I like a lot of the small touches that are in it.
Can you just imagine like that parallel universe where we didn't decide to pick this up for the recap, and you told me about it a few weeks ago? I was like, I don't know, it's kind of boring.
It's kind of meh.
So I mean, I'm not ecstatic about this, but I guess like just kind of like reading through it again, knowing what's going to happen, and seeing the little things and the way that everything unfolds helps to gain a deeper appreciation for the composition of the chapter.
Yeah, I will say this is obviously a chapter that is intending to kind of build up Yorishige, and I don't know if Yorishige is, at least yet, as interesting of a character as, say, Nero or Kuro Sensei, but this is also only chapter 4, so there's plenty of more time to kind of show it. I do like that this character is just full of tricks and facades and all these things that kind of blind and try to kind of like hide a true identity. But I do like a bit of the relationship a little bit more. It's generally fun, and I'm intrigued by it. Nothing's horrendous yet, I guess I should say. So in that way, I'm kind of happy about it.
I will say that I do wonder when we're going to get to the point where we have to kind of stop reiterating the premise, which is a little bit. It does kind of worry me a bit that we haven't gotten off to. It doesn't feel like we're building momentum yet. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
it doesn't feel like
I
we
do wonder
have
about that, and if it'll affect the way people catch us on.
Yeah, we don't quite yet have an idea what the forward momentum of this series, like where are we kind of going from here? Like, are we going to be in for a training arc or something like that for this series that's 4 years old or whatever, or 4 chapters old or whatever? But, who knows? I guess we shall see. I will say, just, I don't think many mangaka prepare themselves for, like, I hope I get onto the show weekly manga recap. But I was going to say, if this had been chapter 4 instead of chapter 3, I don't know if I would have been as encouraged to keep it around.
I definitely know what you mean. Speaking of chapter 3, I Tell Seed chapter 3, Bright. So last chapter concluded with Miss Aoi allowing herself to be kidnapped by the taxi driver serial killer, who very obviously got her to take candy laced with some sort of sleeping medication. And as she comes to, she is tied down to a chair with a tape gag, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're awake, my precious star." And she's been captured. Oh no! Except oh yes, because that's what you wanted to happen. We also cut over to see briefly that Sakon is, trying to figure out where she is, and because he knows that she must have already gotten in contact with the perp. Aoi's kidnapper is being like, "Oh, you're so pretty and petite," and then he reveals a shrine behind some curtains of his previous victims, and he's like, "You girls can be my #1 stars," and Miss Aoi seems to get freaked out. Tears come to her eyes, and he's like, "Oh, don't cry, don't cry. This is just how it has to be. Mommy would yell at me for playing with dolls, so I'll just have to play with you instead." Signifiers of serial killers. Anyway, but when he takes the gag off of her, turns out she's crying in happiness. And she then immediately cuts herself loose from the bonds with some sort of hidden blade. And she's like, "Oh, you say I'm your #1? I'm so happy." And the Jar's like,
wait, no. No, it was supposed to be panicking. What's happening?
So he says, "Wait, you're not going to cry or yell?" And she's like, "No, I love criminals. And all I want to do is just share my life with the person who called me his #1 star." And she takes off her trench coat to reveal the Lolita outfit she went out and bought. And she's like, "I already dressed up for our date. How do you like it?" And he's like, "No, it's awful. Those aren't the clothes that you needed to wear." And he's got her outfit all prepared over on a dummy. And he's like, "Take them off or I'll take them off myself with a knife." This is not a very good way to take them off, sir. They have buttons. clothes.
He's like, yeah, I'm gonna take the buttons off with my knife. Like, oh man, this is harder than it looks.
Most knives are not meant to cut through fabric, it turns out.
Well, I like to think he's trying to unbutton them with the knife. Like,
he just like, keeps on like, ow, ow.
Why is this so hard?
So Aoi's like, oh, I've been rejected again. And then Sakan arrives. Nobody heard him coming in because cops are ninjas. And he kicks the guy in the back of the head, knocks him out. Yay. How does he tie his shoes? They look like staples.
Yeah, they do look like staples. Maybe it's one of those self-lacing shoes.
Like from Back to the Future.
Well, they have those now. Those are real.
They do?
Yeah, my little brother owns a pair of them. It's very amusing because every time he has to put them on, you hear him walk over to a station. You hear like a murr, murr. It's just like, it's such a lame way of showing like how far technology has gotten. Like, all right, my shoes are on. I can go outside now.
Sakan asks Aoi if she's all right, and she doesn't answer him because she's rude. Ukon's there too, and Sagan's like, yes, this was the only one who fit the perp's criteria, and we used his cab's GPS to track him here, but she's not even listening. She heads over to a door over in the side of the room and like starts breaking stuff. I think she's hitting a lock with a brick or something like that. So Sagan's like, don't compromise the crime scene. But she explains there's still someone here, as there is a bear modeling dummy there, in addition to the one that had the clothes that he had picked out for her. So there's a lock holding the door shut, and she's like, a 4-digit lock. I bet it's the same as his PIN number.
I kind of like that as a little touch because, one, he's absolutely basic enough he probably would do that because that's just how most people are. But two, it was a fun way to show her stalking tendencies because he's just like, Sagan's like, how would you know that? It's like, oh, like she doesn't say it, but she's just like, oh, I follow him over his shoulder and see everything, basically.
We actually see that her stalking technique is actually like to attach herself into a harness on the perp's back and just like, they don't like, oh, my briefcase is way heavier. None of them ever noticed.
My book bag feels really heavy today.
Oh, well. So she opens the door and there's a girl chained up inside, still alive, and she's wearing the same outfit that the guy had picked out for Aoi. So she's like, oh, yeah, he must have wanted us some matching outfits. So the girl is, of course, freaking out because, of course, she is. Mm-hmm. And so Sakan starts to assure her that she's going to be safe, but instead Aoi goes forward and kneels down in front of the girl, takes her by the face. Gently, yes. But like this.
Yes.
So she embraces her and says, don't worry, you're okay now. And the girl starts to feel better. She is, still tearful, but she is more happy tears, I guess. Cut to later, and I always like, Mr. Sakan, is my taste really that tacky? And Sakan's like, what? Well, I got dumped because our fashion senses differed. It's like, anyway, she's putting up the taxi driver's portrait on her wall. And Sakan changes the topic and says, I was surprised because, when you hugged that girl, you seemed like some sort of saintly mother. By the way, I need you to fill out this report. But Aoi explains herself by saying, look, I fall in love with the criminals, but the victims are innocent. I don't endorse crime, but every criminal has a reason for committing the crime that they do. And I want to validate the sadness behind those reasons. That's how my love works. I give them support and acceptance. I mean, it's never worked out for you. So
yeah, I was going to say we haven't seen that yet, but I'm
just going to stalk them. Sakan doesn't really know what to say to this, so she goes on and says, well, thank you, because no one's ever saved me before, so I was really shocked by that. And we, get a flashback of Sakon riding in a police cruiser with Ukon and being like, "Why is no one else, responding to the backup when I told them that I was in trouble?" And Ukon's like, "Because it's her. She's a criminal, and to the police, she's a tool, a disposable tool. So it may not be fair to think of her that way, but that's how it is." And so we get the whole fighting poison with poison metaphor again. Once you have poison on your hands, no one will reach for them. I mean, no, but maybe someone will give you the antidote.
Yeah.
That's the price you pay, the cross you bear. And that's what all criminals must live with. Could that be why she accepts criminals into her life? It's almost like her form of benevolence. And so Sakon's like, okay, I don't approve of your criminal ways, but don't think that means I won't continue to save you if needed. And he wonders to himself, is the way I feel about her now how you felt too, Dad? He moves to leave, but then he says, hey, don't put yourself in danger anymore, because my duty is to protect you, and I will stop you from putting yourself in danger if need be. And then he leaves. So I always I guess he has a point, because I can't afford to die just yet. She takes out the unsolved case file where she was one of the victims, and she says, I still need to find this person and kill them.
But I thought you loved them.
And then we just leave off on the note of, this is the tale of two detectives struggling to control poison. To its credit, I think this is the most interesting chapter we've gotten from this series so far.
Mm-hmm.
Still don't really like it, though.
I came around on it. So at first, the first moment I read the chapter, I started off hating it because, it opens up with Aoi, tied up in the chair with the gag, and then immediately the dude just starts monologuing. I was like, oh, I really don't want to sit here and kind of have to dwell in the misery of this scene of this serial killer kind of taunting the victim. And then she immediately breaks out of it, and she's just like, oh, this is so, immediately makes him look like a fucking clown because he's just like, no, you're not supposed to do this. And she's like, oh no, yeah, hey, check out the dress, see, I'm ready for the date. And she's just like, I don't know what's happening. I do think it's weird that the justification for why he kidnaps women and dresses them up and then murders them is because his mom wouldn't let him play with dolls. I feel like
very stock, stereotypical serial killer thing.
Yeah, I was I feel like you could have just started wearing cat maid dresses and thigh highs and gone onto YouTube. That's another way. You could have done a lot of things. It's a weird way to approach that response, but whatever. And I also don't quite she says her whole deal is I'm gonna I fall in love with the people for their sympathetic side, and I give them support and acceptance. I was like, if you're going to start with that, maybe you should not start with a really violent offender, because this guy has been kidnapping and murdering girls, and I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but she refers to her mom as mommy. So the one girl feels kind of young to a certain extent. So he might be murdering minors on top of everything. And it's let's not start with him. Why don't you get a guy who fucking steals credit cards or some shit like that? I don't know. I wouldn't start with the guy who murders, young girls, basically. So I thought that was a little bit weird. And honestly, the end of the chapter with the whole explanation does really kind of almost call into question, why does she even work for the police department? It feels almost like it would be better off if she was a vigilante or something like that.
Right, not housed specifically at the police station. There's a whole gallery of moral quandaries you could work through in terms of how this arrangement works out. Not all of which I always responsible for. By the way, they sanctioned the things that she does.
Yeah, I was by the nature of employing her, you do open yourself up to the responsibility of her actions because she is a part of your workforce. It's it would be a lot easier if she was a vigilante who they just don't crack down on because they're the fucking bitch solves crimes. What can I do? You can follow her, you'll get to a criminal. But instead, it's just like, I don't know, maybe she'll die. Who knows? Like, all right, whatever. But I do kind of like her character. I really like how comforting she is when she finds the other girl. And it makes sense as there's sort of that implication that there was another victim in her kidnapping case that, we don't know what happened to them. But, it's a nice touch to show that she has that empathy. And she has this very sweet personality to her on the other side of her, like, yandere detective vibes. And Seikon doesn't have a lot going for him, but he does seem admirable, and the art's good. So this is not a bad story at all. And I think this is probably the best chapter of the 3 we got, even though I spent half of this recap kind of talking about all the bad parts of the chapter.
Right.
But I still thought it was interesting and innovative in a different way. Just very dumb at the same time.
Now, this has been 3 chapters that this series has been running, so it is time to make our decision on this. I'm personally not really in favor of continuing reading this, but I would understand the arguments in favor of that because it's not awful. It's just kind of weird and not good.
Yes.
But it's different. And having different things to talk about on the podcast is a good thing.
Yes.
I'm just not particularly enthusiastic about the idea of continuing to talk about it currently.
I would like to, if only for that kind of what you're saying there. It is a different sort of series. And I feel like, again, if it gets worse, I feel like it can 100% fall down the Time Paradox Ghost Rider trail where it could just get ridiculous and stupid. Or if not, it'll be... I don't know what the high point for the series is. We're too early on to really say what like the audience judgment is. But in my general sense, I don't think this is going to run particularly long. So my thought is like...
I don't get that impression either.
Yeah,
no.
so I was like, maybe this is just something we end up talking about for, 4 months, and it gives us something different in the recap or something like that.
Yeah, okay, you've convinced me.
Okay.
But I mean, when you brought Time Paradox Ghost Rider, I was like, you know what, you're fucking right, aren't you?
You're like, what? It could just
That
be
series
bad.
was garbage, but boy, did we have a good time with that one. So.
All right, so I don't need
All right.
I don't need Dolph Ziggler's theme song for this one. All right, I'm gonna close that phone.
Well, I was gonna see if we could like bargain something out, but
Again, just note I have it. Also, I have a handle now, so just note it's nice. Becoming more and more.
I feel like I would have felt bad long term if I had made you blow it this early too. So
it's okay. I might just use it next week for Witch Watch to punish both of us.
So, Magu-chan, God of Destruction, Chapter 31. Gula, the Adamantine. What's up, Chris?
It's just... I don't know. I just started laughing because I remember that this chapter was basically like, how like the end of a harem series has to like pair off all the spares, basically, like that old trope. This is like that, but everyone has to get their Pokemon. It's like everyone's supposed to get a power up, and they did the main characters and gave them theirs, and then they're like, shit, there's like a bunch of side. Like, how are we gonna get fucking Matt and TK their crest? I don't know. They find it in a well or something like, or not Matt and TK. What was it, Joe and TK, I think, whatever.
It was Matt and Izzy found theirs in a well.
Matt and Izzy,
while they were with Pixie-mon.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't know. You find it in a well. They were right next to each other. Like, we have to get some of these fucking done, okay?
Ty's was the first they found, and then Joe's was in the soccer coliseum.
That's right. I forget it because it wasn't actually a Joe-centric episode at all. It was a Ty-centric. Yeah.
Mimi got hers when after they were on the desert cruise ship. There was the giant cactus that sent it away, and it was over the giant cactus. Then Sora was the last one they got because hers was at the bottom of the pyramid that Datamon was in. 1, 2, 3.
Where did TK get his?
Oh, I don't remember that one. Was it a lighthouse?
I don't remember. I'm trying to even think if he got his at the same time or did he get his later.
I don't remember where
Because he didn't evolve into Magna Angemon until the Dark Masters arc. So I don't remember when he got his. Somebody's saying it was a cave exit. That sounds about right.
Okay, fine. Why would I bother to remember anything that had to do with TK?
I don't know. It was also great. We stopped
the guy who rattled off all the crest locations other than that.
Like, we stopped the podcast dead too for like 2 minutes to be like,
it's important, guys.
Matt Nancy got there when Joe got his second.
We'll be doing that if we
couldn't have figured it
on
out.
Crunchyroll. All right. Anyway, yeah, this is Kyo getting her Demon Lord partner one. That's the conclusion of this. Might as well get that out of the way. That's it. How we got there, I did enjoy the journey because this guy that they meet, Gula the Adamantine, he starts off as this massive serpent head that they see pop up on the beach. And he challenges Magu-chan to fight him because he wants to be the true god of destruction by proving he's more powerful than Magu-chan. And Magu responds to this challenge by using his eye beams and immediately blowing the guy apart. And his head falls to the ground. So they think he's dead, and Ruru's like, Magu, why'd you do that? It's like, he was just another rankless being freed from his seal. I merely countered his hostility with due force. Anyway, let's go home. So Kyo stays behind while everyone else has to go home to dinner. Ruru gets over the whole "you killed a man" Magu by being like, I need to go make dinner. But Kyo stays behind because she wants to get a bio sample and run tests on it. But as she stays behind and is left on her own, a shadow looms up behind her. Ooh. The next day, everyone realizes that Kyo is missing. So they're like, oh man, maybe she ran away. So they go check out the beach to see if they can find her. And they get back to the beach as Ruru's worrying about her. And there's Kyo inside the mouth of the beast that emerged. And he's just kind of like hanging out there with Kyo in his mouth. Has been presumably for close to 24 hours. And Kyo's not as upset about this as you might think because she's a little weirdo. So Gula is like, fight me, Magu! And so Magu's like, how cowardly of you to use one of my followers as a shield. And Ruru's like, that's dangerous, let her go. And Gula's like, oh yeah, it is dangerous. I guess I'll go. Drop her down right away. And Ruru's like, wait, weren't you holding her in your mouth as a hostage? And Gula just kind of goes,
fuck it, fight me. Like he's like, stop trying to play mind games, fight me.
So Magu's like, man, he's pretty dumb, isn't he? He's like, don't insult me, I'm super strong. So they get ready to fight, and Magu challenges Gula to show him his power. And so he's like, prepare yourself, behold! And he just gets out a bunch of empty aluminum cans gathered from around the beach. And he's like, I spent all last night picking them up from the beach with this lowly human. Now I'll crunch them down and crush them. And he makes them into a perfect ball by squeezing all the cans down in his jaws. And Magu looks at this for a second. And he pulls a freaking ball and chain out of his mouth and knocks the ball away. Like, yeah, I can produce metallic spheres even without scrap metal. So Gula is upset because Magu's not even the least bit shaken by him showing off. Naputuku arrives because fuck it, why not? Naputuku's here, everything's better now, yay! So he explains that his hermit minions were frightened, so he came to see what was going on. He sees Gula and is like, what the hell? Ruru explains by going yada yada yada, which is one of my favorite things about Magu-chan, is that's just like, anyway, I explained. So so Nabutuku is like, oh, this guy could be of use to me. So he says, look, if you pit strength against strength, that's just barbaric. You must attack his weakness using trickery and cooking.
That was my favorite moment of the chapter, where Naputuku comes in with his lessons and he's like, you gotta get at them with cooking and trickery. It's like the two things he cares about.
So he's like, look, Magu is no good at creation. He's got no sense for it. So Kyo gets an idea. It's like, oh, we could do a castle building competition. And Gulag gets this huge, big, happy grin. So he's like, oh, it's a great
I'm shocked it hasn't been made into a emoji on our Discord at this point.
Well, there's only so many Magu Discord reactions you get. So he uses Big Maw to shape the sand together. Magu is just going to make a little ploy with his tentacles. And so Gula crushes the sand from deep down inside the earth and makes what looks kind of like a birdhouse, honestly, with his powers. And then they look over. Magu's still just making a little hill. But the hermit crabs have made a beautiful, like, Japanese-style temple with a little Naputaku on top of it. So they're like, oh, the hermit crabs win the competition. So Gulag gets pissed off at this, and he crushes the sandcastle, which sends Naputaku flying Team Rocket style into the sky. And Gulag is really pissed off now. He comes bustling in towards Magu, and he's like, I'm going to crush this town and show you my power! And Ragu's like, oh no, what about Kyo? Kyo's riding around in Gulag's neck because she's weird like that. And so Magu's like, oh, if I release my destructive power, I will strike my follower. So Gulag starts to go, shut up! Everyone shut up! Everyone's always belittling me, mocking and laughing at me! And Kyo suddenly gets a bit of insight about the way he's been acting this far. He's like, I know what you are. I get it now. Lord Magu, this is just an intimidation tactic. He only wants everyone to think he's big and strong. And Magu realizes, oh, it is no wonder I failed to recognize him. And he gets all the hermit crab's attention and says, go, Pipsqueaks, dig in the sand and expose this fiend. And they go digging into the dirt right at the base of Gula. And it turns out he's a weird crab guy. And the giant serpent thing is just one of his claws made really big. So he's upset because he's been exposed and he's humiliated, and he introduced himself again as Gula the Adamantine, which Magu says is a specialized power that regenerates and strengthens one's physical form. He hid his true weakened form and used his power to disguise his arm as a body. So Magu's, kind of gives Gula a little bit of, encouragement by saying, I am not attached to the trite title God of Destruction, but if you wish to become a god, your actions are what matter the most, not how you look. He's patting him on the head when he says this. So Gula is just upset about this, of course, but Kyo picks him up from the ground and is like, hey, there's no need to feel ashamed. We're not laughing at you. I lived my whole life in hiding, and I can understand a little bit about how you feel. And I want to know more about you, so why don't you come home with me? And Gula's like, you want to see more of my power? Everything works out. Because a few days later, they're at the occult club, and they want to have snacks. So Kyo produces Gula, and he's going to open up the snack bags with his power. And he's like, behold my power!
Gula is an extremely fun character, and I do love all the jokes about Gula in this chapter. It is a shame that Gula is attached to by far the most boring character in Magu-chan. Like, even every time they cut to her, it's something where it's like, it sure looks like fucking whatever her name is having a really good time. And she's like, tee hee hee. I'm like, man, it's just nothing. There is nothing in this character. So it's a little bit of a sadness there, but I think Gula was fun. And this is definitely the most Pokemon design of a Magu-chan character to this point.
A crab where its eyes are on its claws.
Yeah.
I do like Gula a lot. I think it's going to, at the very least, whenever Kyo comes by, it's like, oh, mixed bag instead of the worst character, because at least she's going to bring Gula with her. So. I do quite like him. I like him more than the depressed one. And I do not hate him. So
yeah,
I thought this was an interesting chapter, and we'll see what else this guy gets up to.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting. Now there's another god, so I presume we're going to at some point start having to move into why all these gods are showing up. There was the implication a couple times now that something might be going on with the Holy Knights. So I wonder if we're slowly starting to set up the seeds for an actual, like, long plot for Magu-chan that isn't is mom going to come home for Christmas?
Yeah. We'll see.
Maybe.
All right. So, new series, Sports Manga, has returned to Weekly Shonen Jump. Chris, as soon as I saw the baseball caps for this promotional image, I was like, God, I hope that this works out.
I know, right?
I need a sports manga in Jump. I need it.
It's been so long.
I know it's only been half a year, but shut up.
It feels ancient, especially because we have had the weird luck that, so when we started Weekly Manga Recap, most of it wasn't being published at the time. So Hinamaru Zomu never got published, and I think Kuroko's Basket had already started. And I think you might have talked about a couple chapters of it back in like the way early days.
Maybe.
But like, yeah, it wasn't one we covered. And then we didn't catch on Haikyuu when it started because it wasn't being simul-published at that point. And then after that ended, there's just been like anytime we've picked up a sports series, it's ended like immediately, or it just didn't get like
children.
Yeah, something like that.
So this is Nine Dragons Ball Paradise. Hey, that's the emphasis in the logo, not mine. Okay. Chapter 1, The Start of a Dream. Now it is a baseball manga.
Yes.
And I know baseball is one of the most boring sports imaginable.
I almost like as like when I first saw the title and like heard the premise, I was like, fine, just give it to me. Like it was somewhere I was like, any sport right now, I'll take. So yeah, I was right there with you. I was like, it was like between this and golf. They're like, which of the worst sports can we pick to make a manga out of? I was like, I'll take it. Just give it to me. Give it to me.
So we are introduced to our main character, Tamao, sorry. And it starts off with him as a kid watching Hakuo High School, dominating the West Tokyo High School baseball tournament. They get to go to the Koshien, and they've been doing this for like years in a row. And he's watching as like a middle schooler, be like, oh, this is so cool. And he's like, hey, my name is Tamao, and my motto is safety first. I'm a small kid. I'm pretty nervous, whenever I was a kid, if I wanted to go down a slide, I'd let all the kids go ahead of me, and I never ended up having my turn. That's the kind of person I am. But then one day I realized, hey, it's cool to be strong, and so I decided that I wouldn't give up on my dream for anyone. And we see that he has really dedicated himself to this. When it's time for him to go into high school, he has been training for the entire intervening 2-year period. He has been running. He has been studying. He's been dieting to, facilitate good growth and fortitude and all that stuff. He's got this shit down. And not only has he been studying, he has been studying individual players on different teams, their skills, their weaknesses, so that he knows what to expect from any potential rival. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I've thoroughly researched everything. Everything is going according to plan. And he gets that villainous glasses glare as he's studying baseball players.
Now this is where I have a small issue. Shonen Jump are cowards. Fucking cowards. Because if they were ballers, they would have absolutely said everything is going according to Keikaku and then had a little asterisk that says Keikaku means plan, because that would have been fucking hilarious.
Also, if the author had balls, then Tamao would have been studying, and then his older brother Inui would have come in and still on about that day to baseball? Yeah, still on about that day to tennis? Yeah, okay. So he has a good breakfast for that day. He like breaks down what every individual item in the breakfast is meant to do for him. I think that this is going to make him throw up personally. But... It's a lot of
carbs, but he is going to be working out. I love though. Yeah, everything has its little detail except like the milk. It's just like coffee's too bitter without it. like milk's not like a great thing to have. He's just like, I need it though.
Coffee sucks.
Yeah.
So he jogs for 45 minutes. By the way, this guy is like, I could not do what this kid does physically. Okay, especially when I was a teenager. This dude runs 1.5 kilometers in under 5 minutes. That's roughly a mile.
Yes.
In under 5 minutes. That's insane for someone going into high school. So,
and also not someone who he doesn't consider himself athletically gifted at all. Like, that's the thing, is like 5-minute mile is phenomenal. For someone who's like, oh, I'm the weakest physical player on this team. Like, all right.
Like, you might not be physically strong or fast, but you got fortitude.
Oh, yeah.
If you're like, I can just keep running for 5 minutes, and he's not even sweating after he's done timing himself. What is this kid? He gets to tryouts the next after that, and he immediately is like, "Oh wow, these guys are like famous players among like the high school recruiting circles." I have no idea how this guy's been gathering this information. These guys would have been in middle school before this. How does he know all this about them? I do like how each of them has like ability, track record,
yes.
chance of selection, percentages pop up under their name, and for himself, he just has random kid with glasses, chance of selection, lol. That's it. But he's like, it's okay, shake it off. I've prepared for this more than anybody. We then meet the head scout of the team, Mr. Fukuchi. I'm not gonna remember that. I'm just gonna call him Scout Guy.
Okay.
So he passes out numbers to everyone. He's like, all right, we're going to get started. And he's like, he starts to say what they're going to do first. But suddenly someone behind Tamao just goes, and the scout's like, Tao Ryudo, was that a yes or are you yawning? He's like, it was both. Sorry, man. If I didn't hate Matt Riddle, I'd do a Matt Riddle impression for this guy. So, but Tamao immediately gets pissed off because the guy's like, this guy's not taking this seriously at all. Meanwhile, Ryudo is just like, hey, tryouts are starting. Let's have some fun. We're playing baseball. That's fun, right? And Tamao's like, we're going on a 1,500-meter run before this. Oh, that's not fun, though. All right, let's go. So, he's like being like, hey, why aren't you taking this seriously? Come on, oh wait, I got to run, and he's getting distracted by the guy all throughout the practice as they go through different things. But even though Tamao is making it through under the line and he's getting pissed off at this guy, the guy's very easily breezing through all of these tests. He's clearly very physically gifted, even without trying very hard. They go through like the long toss as one of the last physical tests. And Tamao manages to pass by throwing the ball far enough, which was apparently a big weakness for him. He's like, oh my God, I struggled after all this, but I made it. I actually managed to get my physical limitations past them. And Ryo's like, oh yeah, I passed too. I threw it 20 meters farther than you did. Yeah. And then they see this big hulking guy throw the ball way past the markers into the fence on the other side of the field, blowing past both of their throw marks. And Azu, I guess we'll call him because that's what Ryudo's calling him, is like, who's that guy? Is he famous? And Azu's like, I have no idea who that guy is, but he's introduced as Daichi Kunoshiro, a 30-year-old man going into high school. So, and this guy is also trying out for the same position that Azu is, which is catcher. And he's like, I mean, this kind of team, they only need one catcher. They're only going to be recruiting one of us. I've got to actually beat this guy. So the last part of their tryout is going to be pitting the applicants against each other in a 5-inning game. And of course, so that puts Azu and Kunoshiro on opposite sides. So Azu's like, all right, all this research I've been doing, I can do this. I can make this team. And so they're like, all right. This guy's pitcher is Arisa. Okay, got it. He's got a great slider. So in order to get good mileage out of it, we'll set it up with a fastball for the first pitch. And the pitcher, meanwhile, is on the mound. He's getting this signal from Azu. And he's like, I'm not going to take some signals from this asshole.
Yeah.
A slider is my first pitch. And it immediately gets for a home run. It's like, fucking listen to your fucking catcher, you idiot. So immediately, Team A is taking a lead over Azu's Team B. And people are blaming the difference in catchers because Kunoshiro is so talented and Azu is not doing so well because his pitcher's not listening to him, and he's really nervous and upset about this. So he tries to, call the players over. He's like, "Hey, can we like strategize?" And they're not. They're like, "What? What do you want?" So, nothing. So Ryudo's like, "Hey, why don't you speak up?" And I was like, "They don't trust me. I'm just some nobody." So Ryudo is like, "Well, it's my turn to pitch, so I'll show them." And I was like, "Oh, you're a pitcher, yeah." So he's trying to get the team back in good spirits. Like, all right, let's do this. He throws a pitch.
Yeah. I need to note this now. So one of the things I think that really works in this series' strong point is the art is really good at the action. Like, if you wanted to show that this guy's fastball is incredible, you make it look like a fucking Dragon Ball Z attack where like there's like the spiral and then a spiral of wind behind, like over top of it. Like it looks freaking awesome.
Yeah, he basically fires like a special beam cannon that curves around, and it's noted as like a rising fastball. So very difficult to hit, and no one's got any information on this guy at all. So they're like, "Oh wow, we could have a real ace on our hands with this guy." So I was like, "All right, this guy. I mean, geez, he's got speed, power, and he's got such wonderful subtle manipulation of tempo, and his arms like a whip you never see coming. It's like talking about boxer in a way." So he analyzed all this, and then he's like, "Okay, well, what kind of pitches do you have?" He's like, "Oh, I can throw a fastball, and that's it. I can put it inside or outside. So give me some good hand signals, Azu. Yeah." So Azu starts figuring this out, and he's like, "Okay, fastballs only two locations. So I need to figure out how to get the first two strikes, and then once we get there, we finish them off with that high fastball." And they start throwing batters out, and they're like, "Oh wow, this guy's crazy good." No one's even getting close to this. Kunoshiro, the big bulky catcher, is the next guy, and so they're like, "All right, we'll see how this guy handles this." And he goes like, "We're gonna strike this guy out, right? I mean, if we want to even the score, we've got to strike this guy out first, right?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, but I don't know if you can go head to head with this guy." But Ryo puts his hand on Azu's shoulder and he says, "You're my catcher. Flash me the sign for whatever's best." So they do that. Kunoshiro starts talking some shit. And he's like, "That fastball's not going to work on me." Blah, 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 blah. So Azu immediately figures out what to do. Is like, this guy's really confident in himself. He doesn't think we'll pitch to where it's easy for him to hit a home run. So we'll pitch in at him to get his confidence off. And then once we've gotten him to do strikes, we'll just do a low pitch. And he won't see it coming because he'll be expecting the high pitch we've been striking everyone else out with. And it all goes exactly according to plan. They strike the guy out. And everyone's like, "Holy shit, man, you're such a good pitcher." And Ryo takes Azu and puts him in front of himself, and he's like, "It's all thanks to this guy's signals." And then he says, "And hey, not just that. He's got an even better ace up his sleeve. He's got a plan for us to turn this game around, so everyone listen up." And he's clearly not talked over with Azu before. He's like, "You're right. I'm right?" He's like, "Yeah, I guess I do think I know." So he says he thinks that he knows the way to beat Kunoshiro when he's playing catcher, which is that he's super confident. He doesn't trust his pitcher at all. He's trying to get strikes with his signals. So, for example, he backs the batter up with an inside pitch, calls for an outside one. It's very basic, back the pitch, batter off the plate, throw when they can't reach it then. So this will be our strategy. And so everyone's like, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let's do that." They give a big cheer, like, "Hey, let's do this. Let's all make the team together." The scout is observing this and is going, "Hmm."
In his creepy, non-changing facial expression way.
Constant closed eyes and weird grin. So Azu's instructions to the players are, when you get an inside pitch, jump away from the plate and look startled as if you're intimidated. But then you'll just expect the next pitch to go outside, wait for that, and you can hit it because you'll see it coming. And they start getting hits. They start to pile up gradually. They start to make some gains. And now it's the bottom of the fifth, the last inning. They're down just one run. And they've got runners on base. And Azukita is next up at the plate. So Team A brings in a new pitcher. And so they're like, "Oh, man, or we're in trouble. How's this guy gonna handle it? And Asu's like, okay, I know this guy. He's Ryuhei Ohira. I've seen a lot of film of him playing, and I know all about you. The way you tilt your hips slightly when you're about to throw a slider. And he hits the first pitch that he sees, basically, hits it between left and center field, and the runner makes it home, and everyone is safe on base, and they freaking win after the second runner makes it. And everyone's like, hey, Asu, you did it. You're the MVP of our team. And everyone's, patting him on the back and smiling at him and stuff. And Azu just says, I'm so glad because, in baseball, you can be good at defense. You can be a fast runner. You can be strong. If you have one real strength, you can shine. Even me, if I really, really do my homework, I can be of value to the team. And I'm so glad I fell in love with baseball and with this team. And I'm really glad. And he just starts to tear up. And Ryo puts his arm around his shoulder and says, hey, save the tears for the end. Oh, what a nice chapter.
Yeah.
What a nice little story.
I'm glad these guys are going to join the same team together.
What a nice friendship that formed as with these two new teammates. Mm-hmm. The scout calls them forward and he says, if I call your name, you made the team. Taryudo. Of course, Ryudo makes the team. And I was just like, I can feel it. My dream, our dream, is going to begin now. Next, the catcher. Daichi Kunoshiro. And Asu is completely dumbstruck by this. He had not believed in himself. He doubted himself going into this, but as the game progressed, he really did believe he had done enough. And now, the life is drained from his eyes. He looks dizzy from how much he can't believe this. And he's like, what about me? What did I do wrong? And the scout's like, you've got an excellent mind, Asukita. You guided your pitchers with good signs. You saw the opponent's patterns, proposed brilliant tactics. The difference between you and Kunoshiro is what won your team the game. And I will say, at this moment, Chris, I thought we were going to get, you're going to be we would like you to try being, a manager on the team, or a coach or something like that. That's not what he says. But what he says makes an equal amount of sense, which is, we don't need that at Hakuo. We've got a 50-man team of analysts working for us. They research our rivals, devise strategies. They direct the catcher's signals a lot of the time. What we need at Hakuo are tough soldiers to carry out our orders. We don't need players who compensate for their physical weakness with mental strength. And so Asukita is sent packing. And he's like, all right, that's everyone. You're all members of the Hakuo Empire starting today. Your training, your meals, your academics. Hakuo will support everything you do, including your path after you graduate high school. You've got illustrious baseball careers ahead of you. But at that moment, Ryudo speaks up, and he's like, hey, I have a request. We cut back over to Asukita as he's walking home, depressed and sad, and just kind of stewing in it, and he's like, I guess I'm kind of relieved, and he just kind of starts to go into coping mode, I can try playing a video game now.
This hit so hard, where this kid's just like, I guess I'll just stop exercising. I'll just eat junk food and play video games and fucking do everything. I don't know. Yeah. It hits so hard.
And he's just like, yeah, no need for me to push myself anymore. But then he's like, you know what? I can't lie to myself. My dream is over. And tears are just going down his face as he just kind of leans against the rail of a bridge and looks out over nothing. And Ryudo's there. And he says, hey, don't take it so hard, Azu. And Azu's like, did you come to cheer me up? I mean, look, you made the team. You can't really help me out with that right now. And Ryudo's like, yeah, I turned it down. I have a request for you. The best catcher I've ever met. Will you join me to form the best team ever? And that's where the chapter ends.
Yeah.
This really worked for me, man. Yeah. I didn't really know where it was going to go. But then when it got there, I was like, that's a really nice little story you told. Yes. And I really do feel like I know these two characters really well right now and how their dynamic's going to play out. And I look forward to seeing more of it. And it's not even about the baseball. It's about what baseball means to these two kids, which is really nice. I will say I did see a little bit of chatter in our Discord that made me realize like this chapter really did not do a lot to explain the sport of baseball at
Not
all,
at all.
which makes sense if there's going to be a sport that doesn't get explained in a manga, it's going to be baseball because baseball is such a big thing in Japan.
I was gonna say it's like it's a sport that's not only big in Japan, but big everywhere. Like I think for the most part, I guess maybe Europe isn't huge.
Not everywhere.
Yeah,
like,
I guess that's not true. But
some, people we've got some European members of our Discord who were like, I don't really get this. What is this?
That is true.
Baseball popular? So
I guess soccer's probably the most like common sport now.
Why recognizable? I would say that soccer is probably the
football
association football. So I do understand that, and I think that people from Latin American countries.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's the U.S. I know it's big in Latin American countries. Like I know it's a bigger deal.
So I do think that they kind of take it for granted. So I do understand if you were like, I can't really follow this because I'm not familiar with baseball and it doesn't really do anything to explain it. I was able to just kind of look past baseball, which, as I said at the beginning of this, is a very boring sport. So, because, hey, these characters don't think it's boring. They think it's fun and it means a lot to them. And I think that really carries this chapter, just how much Azu wants to make this team. And he does literally everything as perfectly as he can. He works so hard for this and he just gets told no, not because you're bad, but because you're not what we're looking for. And it's that kind of cold adult thing that happens sometimes, which is your skill set does not match what we're looking for and we don't have anything for you. But the dream's not over.
Yeah.
So we're going to see exactly where things go from here. Are they going to go to a different high school together or what are they going to do?
Yeah, so I'll be very curious. It felt a lot like the first chapter of Haikyuu, where Haikyuu kind of set itself up like here's Hinata and here's I'm blanking on his name. The Kurama? No. I don't know. Regardless, here's these two characters and their rivals. We're going to set these guys up and they're going to be rivals forever. And that kid's going to go on to a big school, Kageyama. And, Kageyama's going to go on to a big school. Hinata's going to go to the school that he most likes. And then they're going to meet in the end of the chapter. Kageyama's at the same school. Yeah. And it's that twist that gets you like, okay, I'm into it. Because that's the thing. Like they start this chapter. And for a moment I was like, it almost feels like he's going to make the team. And I was like, but what do you do from there? Because this is the best team. I was like, how are they going to have interesting fights? So when he doesn't make the team, you're like, oh man, I wonder if that's the thing, if they're going to have this other guy be his rival. And then the kid's like, I have a request to make, which does make me laugh a little bit because I was like, yes, what's your request? I would like to quit the team. Like, I request to leave. Like, I guess he's a very polite kid, so I guess that's what he would
request you all to go fuck yourselves.
I request everyone here to beat a big bag of dicks. Goodbye. So, when you see the two of them join up, it's something that's pretty exciting because you're like, okay, cool. I'm looking forward to actually seeing these two put together a team and have to go from the bottom. Because, like, the progress levels are there. Like, Tao is a great player, but he knows no pitches. So, he only knows his fastball. So, like, there's a level of, like, okay, Tao needs to learn the game. And presumably we're going to get other cast-off players or things like that. So, what, Aku is his name? Or the main kid?
Are you talking?
The main kid.
Oh, Azu.
Azu?
Azukita. So Ryudo calls him
Azu. Yeah. So Azu maybe is going to have to be this keystone linchpin kind of person who has to get all these players who maybe are kind of deficient in some way to actually like get them up there using his strategy. I just think that the premise is so strong. I love the relationship these two characters have. And again, it's just the emotion of it. Like, it really destroyed me to read Azu just thinking to himself like, oh, all right, I don't have to try anymore. I'll just start eating junk food and playing video games and staying up till 6 a.m. because who gives a fuck? My dream's gone. And it's just like, it's so brutal. It's so brutal, but I love it. And there was also a great twist played with the color page because they did put the two characters in the Haikudo uniform. So for a moment, you do believe they are going to join that team.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, they were wearing the uniforms for the practice, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of baseball manga that have run in Shonen Jump that have just not worked out.
Yes.
So I'm going to try not to hold my breath for this series to get really good and for people to all love it. Because as many sports series as you see run in Shonen Jump, a lot of them don't pan out very well. So I really want this to A, be good, and B, last a while. One is no good without the other, is what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
But of the 4 series that we've gone, well, I've got to talk about the other one. So I feel as though currently with the 4 new series that we've got, this one I like. ITEL C is interesting, and the Elusive Samurai is both.
Yes.
It's interesting and it's good. This one is neither.
But Nick, when she vomits, her confetti was her barf was confetti. So
Watch chapter 2, A Magical Duo. Things happen. End of chapter. So there's a couple of things. I don't want to go through this chapter. It'll take me so long. I can sum it up very easily.
Can we start with the fact that there's an unexplained joke that Nico is like doing an office style talk to the camera scene that is, I guess, happening in some sort of WandaVision like separate reality because characters are interacting with it at certain points, like interrupting her to be like, "No, there's a fire. You have to get out." Like, I guess she's telling it to herself. I don't know.
Yeah, she's kind of like, it's kind of like happening in real time because she's giving the narration and then while they're out, and Moe is like, "There's a fire!" And she's like, "What? What are you talking? Oh, a fire!" So that happens when they go out shopping after she's used her magic to make the bags light. So there's a person trapped in a burning building, and Moe's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I'm going to go fly up there and save them." And he's like, "Well, that's dangerous though." Because he's worried after the prophecy he heard about from his dad. But she's like, "Well, I'm going to be a great witch who helps people." And she takes the broom out, and Kiki flies up and saves her friend / love interest from falling. And it was after not being able to fly after that part of the movie. And everyone's happy. And I was happy because that movie was bad. And it was that scene.
Oh, shit.
Over, so.
Not only are we taking down Witch SWAT, we're taking...
I hate Kiki's delivery service. Come at me.
All right.
So, Moe sees Nico is determined to save this woman, so he's like, "All right, well, I'm going with you. You concentrate on the flying, and I'll do the rescuing." Okay, and they fly up, and they're like, "Come on, man, we'll save you." And the woman eventually goes like, "We're flying on a broom," but she doesn't say that in this moment, presumably because she's got more important things to worry about. Moe catches her as she jumps off the balcony, but oh no, the broom has reached its weight limit because there's 3 people on top of it. So Moe's like, as they're crashing to the ground, like, "I know, Nico, use the spell that you used before to make things light and cast it on me." So she casts it on him, and they're like, "Oh, good. It's lighter," and so we're saving a little bit more. And then Moe starts going, "Yeah, that's like super awesome." So being light made him light-minded. Which means he's a dit now. I hope you like that joke, because that's the last one we have, and it lasts 5 pages until they've saved the woman, and Nico casts the spell on herself because they're still too heavy, and they're both going, "Yeah, okay, totally, yeah." And then they go and get their shopping bags, which they left behind to go and save the girl. And when they get home, suddenly everything is super heavy. They're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And Nico's like, "Oh," and she looks up. "My spell has an after effect, which makes everything super heavy when it wears off." And they're like, "Oh no." And then they get super heavy and fall to the ground, and they get all super depressed and sad. and then they just kind of are gloomy for the last panel, and that's the joke. I'm sorry. This is not funny.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not on Kiki's delivery service. I'm not gonna fucking stand on that hill with you. I think I'm gonna let you stick the arrows on that one.
You don't have to. I'll stand alone. I've been bearing that for half my life. Okay. But I need you to be with me on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Witch Watch sucks. It's not funny. The art in it is pretty good, but these characters are not entertaining. These jokes are not funny. These premises are not interesting. It's like if you had won the veto in the bank, this is what you should use it on. Like if you wanted to make me suffer the most. This is actively unpleasant and painful to read because it is a comedy. Like, so the only comedy and Jump that was worse this week was High School Family, which is an up and down series. This week was really, really bad. But High School Family is done in like 8 pages. Like
there are ups
yeah.
in that series.
Well, less. So like, imagine you got like hit in the head with like a sledgehammer, and then the next day you got hit in the head with a regular hammer. Like the regular hammer is less painful. So in that way, yeah, it ebbs and flows.
I don't know. I feel as though the sledgehammer is so powerful that you don't feel some of the impact, and then it makes you tender. So the smaller hammer, you might feel more pain.
Maybe the sledgehammer chapters are the ones I'm enjoying. Then maybe the jokes are so bad, like I kind of like my mind zones out, and it's like some of the just flows. Anyway, it's a really unfunny series, and it's not particularly like I know some people are really excited because they're like, I like the main character, and I like that she's kind of like a thirst trap for this guy. And I was like, I don't know. I guess that's what Ayakashi Triangle is for me, is like a lead female who's just relentlessly hungry for the main character. And like, I guess it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, I feel bad because a lot of people like it. Ace is the letterer for it. Like, I like, and it's great lettering. I'll say that. It's just one of those things where I'm like,
it's a nice touch that they're
not enjoy
the font
this.
changes when they get bimbified. Yeah.
It's
nice touch.
It's just the jokes they're not landing for me. And again, I don't know if like maybe it translates better in Japanese. The idea of like, I cast light on us, so our personalities get light, so we become airhead. Like Joe, it's just one of those things. I'm just like, yeah, it's not doing it.
Remember when Naruto had the time skip and Karui married Choji because her name means light? And he's heavy?
Holy shit. I forgot there was some stupid pun. And like, wasn't she a cat person? No, that was Ino. Did he marry like a cat person? Yeah.
Yeah, the one of the most obscure characters to show up in that whole thing was like some girl that Sasuke and company hung out with for a little bit to hide. Like, yeah, but because she was the only cat associate person in the cast, she got with Kiba.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is what it is. Maybe chapter 3 will be better. We don't get to decide quite yet. Maybe the next one's where we all turn around.
Maybe the cast of Astra Lost in Space will show up, and it'll just be the continuing adventures of the crew of the Astra. Dr. Stone.
Time to get stoned, Nick.
Z equals 185. Lovely cleavage. Plain. I don't know what's going on in this cover page, by the way.
Oh, Kaseki's fucking river dancing on Senku's big stupid face. Yeah, he's like, oh. Oh, man, Senku has a stepping fetish, and Koseki is the hottest person in the group, you know?
Step on me. I don't know. So, Senku and company have made their petrification.
I was going to say Koseki's the closest thing they have to a 9-foot tall vampire woman, but he's actually the furthest thing they have from that.
Yeah, that'd have to be like that one muscly woman that's with Stanley's group, I think.
Yeah. And I'm sure people ask her to step on them all the time, so.
Probably. So, anyway. They still, of course, need a petrification device for their petrification tower to actually work. And Kaseki has been at work on this all the time, and he's actually managed to pop open one of the Medusa devices without breaking it. He just got a little panel off. And they're really impressed by this, but he says, "It's all thanks to my guts, but I've also left a mountain of failures." It's like, well, you've been working hard, buddy. Good for you. So, Gen proposes that they replicate what Joel did before, pop out the diamond, and then reinsert it to try and get the device to work for a split second. I guess like, no, I already tried that and it did not work. Which Senku points out, like, yeah, well, these are much older devices, which I don't know how he'd be able to tell, but that's what he says. So, Kaseki just concludes, we have to just dig deep down into our guts and craft one for ourselves, a new diamond battery, the perfect shape and size. Meanwhile, Joel is at work making diamonds back with the group, but none of the diamonds work on the petrification device they're experimenting with. He's like, it should be perfect. It's the perfect shape and size. So if my skills can't create this, no one in the world can do this. Could be an ordinary diamond somehow isn't the answer. And Kaseki at the exact same moment is saying to himself, there's got to be some key difference, but what is it? So Senku says to Kaseki, like, okay, we haven't heard anything from Joel by now, and you've been working with all these samples and experiments to work with, so that must mean something here is wrong, and that's good that we can conclude that, because that allows us to work with that more information. So Chrome is looking at some stuff. And he's like, "Oh man, these diamond batteries you're making, they're really solid." He's like, "Go with a hammer." I guess it's like, "Don't do that, please." But Chrome says, "I see these are even tougher than the ones we found on the Medusas." And Kaseki at first is like, "Oh yes, well I've got it, don't I? Yes, so I ground them perfectly so they wouldn't crack." And then he immediately gets a bit of insight. He's like, "Yeah, someone like me would never want to make a gem that could crack. So then why are these cracks all over these used diamond batteries?" When we go back to when Stanley made the observation and Kohaku went over, like, yeah, every single one of these clean diamonds has cracks in them. So he takes out some of the diamonds from the used Medusas and he kind of nails into one, and it splits evenly right down the middle. And he splits some more of them the exact same way. They all split the exact same way with just a bit of force applied in the center. And Zeno explains that, running through the lines that intersect at the tip are cleavage planes, where the crystal bond is weakest. And so Senku's like, so the lines must be channeling something somehow. So now that they know this, now they're like, okay, now we know how the structure should look. And Kaseki's like, I wish we could give Joel this hint, because then, we could fill each other in and make more progress that way. But they still can't reveal their position exactly yet, because Stanley knows roughly where they are, but not exactly where they are. So they reiterate that Suika is going to be the one who hides until the end, even though we got that shot and it seemed like we were assuming that it was going to be Suika who was hiding away to revive everyone. Anyway, they say that. She sets off with Francois to find a good hiding place, and Francois is going to, be supplying her with stuff so that she, doesn't go hungry. But as they make their way out, Suika suddenly goes up to the top of a tree, having spotted something, and she says, I think I see them. And there are, sure enough, some boats coming down the river as Stanley's group has arrived, and they are starting to invade the area. They're looking for a campsite. Also, they've got Ginro and Matsukaze with them. Oh no! So Suika's like, okay, we got warn the base that Stanley's gang is coming. But Francois says, well, we can't use wireless communication. That'll allow them to discover our location. At that moment, they spot a spider, and the spider runs away because it smells the scent of army ants. And, Francois recalls, oh yeah, we made the army ant poison thing for the batteries and stuff. So Francois says, we have to return on foot, but at that moment... Okay, so there's been this girl with Stanley's group this whole time.
Yes.
She wears a catsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And Boichi has not drawn a thirsty picture in
so long.
dozen chapters.
He's been holding it in. You know, Dr. Chelsea, she's cute, but she doesn't have the curves that Boichi needs, you know?
So she gets bitten by this spooked spider that goes right towards her after wanting to run away from the invisible army ants. And when it bites her, its venom gets her horny? Look, I know she's supposed to be like racked with spasms of pain from the venom, but why are her nipples erect?
I also don't understand. Now, look, I don't know. I haven't worn a catsuit yet. I also feel like a catsuit would provide some level of support to your chest so that when you fall down, one tit doesn't shoot out that way and one doesn't shoot out that way.
So that happens. She gets DOA boob physics. And so immediately Suika and Francois are like, oh, she must have been bitten by something. And they know that, you know, because Senku informed them like, hey, we've got this little item for you as a last resort for first aid. We made, you know, dynamite. Well, this swab is soaked in nitroglycerin. And if you swab the skin onto someone, it'll expand the coronary artery and kickstart the heart back to life. So use it as a last resort in case you get bit by something.
Kickstart, the Motley Crue song. It's a great song. It's just that the words in sequence kickstart the heart, or I guess kickstart my heart is the song. So.
Oh yeah, driving imagery. So, Francois is like, I mean, we could save her, but we can't get caught. But Suika doesn't hesitate at all. She grabs the swab, and she rolls over to the girl. Strips off that suffocating catsuit from around her collar and starts swabbing at her neck where she's been around so that her artery will open up and her heart restarts, and it saves her life. We cut over at that moment over to Zeno, who is, you know, tied up next to Senku, and he says, what you need to know about Stanley is that in order to rescue his general, he will not hesitate to slaughter everyone. Ethics and morals do not come into play because this is simply his job as a soldier. All those lovely platitudes you spout reveal your inherent weakness, just like fragile cleavage planes. And at that moment, as the girl is thanking Suika for saving her life, Stanley's group spots her and yells at her to freeze. So that's the end of the chapter.
I thought this was a really good chapter. I think that this is a really good escalation of tension because although it's, you know, it's one of those things where you're like, I mean, Stanley doesn't know at that moment that Suika has been caught. So it's, you know, one of those things that's funny. He gives the speech that's very dramatically appropriate to the other scene that's happening. But I do like that. I will say the only thing that annoyed me is the catsuit girl. And not necessarily her design. Look, I know Boichi. You know, I know he's going to be horny. That's fine. It's just these characters. This character has shown up essentially 2 times in the series. Yeah. The first was she was the pilot that they shot down thinking it was Stanley.
Right, the distraction. Right.
Yeah, so she was kind of worthless there. And then this scene where she got bit by a bug and has to be saved. Like, she's so lame off of these 2 introductions that I'm just like, if you're going to give her the cat suit fetish, fine, but can you at least make her look somewhat, like, give her some interesting trait besides she's like, I don't know, the goober of their team?
I'm trying to think of another character that has been made out as badly as her thus far.
People are saying her name's Charlotte. I like calling her Catsuit Girl because that is currently the only interesting factoid about her.
Yeah, Catsuit Charlotte.
Yeah. Nick's very Nick has become a cat, where he's just like distracted by the bug in his
I've
room.
been a cat this whole time,
I know.
Chris. That's why I'm so moody
That's
all
why,
the time.
that's why I love you, because cats are the best.
Aww.
But yeah, no, I legitimately.
I'm sorry, that was really sweet.
But no, this chapter I thought was really, really good in terms of escalating that tension, because suddenly their plan has now fallen apart. I mean, I don't know if the implication is just like, hey, Stanley will probably shoot that child in the head. I mean, I could very easily see them taking a hostage in this situation. Maybe that's regardless. Like, now they know someone is out here, and I'll be really interested to see what, because Francois has a lot on their plate now to, like, how are they going to react? And I also love even just the Francois internal monologue of, like, this is awful that this has happened to this person, but we are central to, like, we are the key of this operation. We cannot get caught, so we're just going to have to and Suika being like, no, and jumping in action to save this person. Yeah. It's a great way to show both characters as being admirable, but Suika being showed as heroic and Francois being shown as the responsible one,
Yeah. In a way, it's, Suika being heroic, but also childish, because that she doesn't think about the consequences. So
yeah, Kurubo called it very well. Katsu Girl is the Captain Phasma of this group.
Oh. All right, let's move on.
All right, let's talk about Mashle, Nick. Chapter 50, Mash Burn Dead, and the protein shakeup.
Puns.
Yeah. So we see basically the other characters gathering their ki. Lance uses gravity to, like, just explode the balloon. Dot just blows it up. We don't see what oh gosh, it's something with an M.
Matrushka.
It's an actual Margaret.
Okay.
That's it. We see how basically everyone gets their keys, except the implication, I believe, is that Dot helps Finn get a key, basically, because everyone has to get it. I don't know. Maybe not. We just see him going huff, so I don't know.
We see that he makes it through this task, and man, if this guy does not have the most badass magic, Mashle has been published for a year now, which, congratulations, that's great. We still don't know what the fuck Finn's magic is. We've been saving this. What does he do?
I know. We cut over to Mashle and Max Land, who are celebrating. They're doing the hip hip hooray jazz hands thing. And Max Land is just like, I didn't think that would work. I didn't think we'd make it. And, Mash is like, here's the key. We got it thanks to your magic, so you go ahead and use it. And Max is touched. Like, you really are a good person. You know what? You take the key. The exit's that way, and there's a rumor that time, factors into your ranking. So, you go ahead and take it. He's like, you should know Rain told me about you. I didn't believe you were as good of a person as he said. Anyway, now that I know the mechanics, I can handle this myself. And, hey, call it my selfish desire to help people like you. So don't worry. And then finally, like, Mash is still kind of hesitant, or at least seems kind of sad about it. So Max pulls the Kohei kind of line. He's like, look, I'm your senpai. It's my job to, basically keep my honor here and you do this, basically. So Mash is like, okay, goes away. Then we, like, get silence. And Max Land says, whew, now then. And, like, that was the moment I was like, oh no, is Max Land evil? Quite to the contrary. He starts to turn and immediately gets, like, a giant cut across, like, the head as we see Carpaccio Liu Yang of Orca show up. Max says, my premonition was right. So, hey, Rain, did I do my best for the younger students? And we see a showdown about to happen. But we cut away as all the contestants are coming in there. Mash shows up. We see Dot carrying Finn in there. So, again, maybe there was a secret thing going on there. We don't know. Everyone's like, wow, I'm surprised you finished it without magic. He's like, oh, I had help.
Also, Doc goes, turns out explosions work just fine.
I feel like explosion magic would work well on most, like, problems. But they're like, only 9 candidates can, go to the next stage. Who will take the final spot? And we see Max Land go through the door. but that's only so he could be dropped on the ground by Orca Dorm's Carpaccio Liu Yang. What a beating, as Max Land is like bloodying on the floor, and even the announcer's like, did he need to go that far? Could this be a declaration of war? Carpaccio steps on Max's head and says, I don't need weaklings. Weaklings are useless, so it shouldn't matter what I do to them. And Mash is like, excuse me? What are you doing? Stop that or get punched. Also, did you have to go so far? We get a little explanation from Finn about Carpaccio Liu Yang, top of this year's continuing students, the best of the best, just like Lance. So essentially the Orca Dorm equivalent of Lance, I guess. And then Carpaccio reaches over. I don't know why. I guess someone was serving drinks, basically. They didn't mention that you can get a drink. So he grabs a cup, and he goes to do the fucking evil bad guy thing where he just goes, weaklings should be kept quiet, and spills water. And then Mash just lifts up a protein powder shake and pours it into a cup in just the perfect way, so the water also goes into the cup and he can mix it real quick. And everyone's like, holy shit, he's making a protein shake. He's like, yeah, sorry, it's 3 p.m. That's what I like to make my special homemade muscle drink.
Oh, it's just the perfect, like, he goes to be a dick to Mash, and without an expression on his face, Mash is just like, protein shake.
I only wish there was like a little ding as it happened or something like that. Like, hey, he knows it's 3 p.m., but it's so cool. And he, basically he's just like, look, not to stop you, but with protein, it's important to stick to a schedule. Also, you're calling people weaklings, but I've never met anyone stronger than me. That's how the chapter ends, as it looks like Mash is going to come into conflict with Carpaccio Liu Yang sometime very soon.
It's a nice little chapter. I do like that as we get to know more students at the academy, we come to learn, like, oh, not everyone's a total dick to Mash.
Yes.
Aside from just his friends. There are some people who are just, like, genuinely kind of nice people. There's this guy who, barely knowing Mash, knowingly sacrifices himself to help him out. So that's really nice. And Mash is funny and cool in this chapter too. So
yeah, I thought it was a funny moment. It was cool seeing this guy's like stupid big I'm gonna spill water on you routine get like tossed away. I think it was a good move for us to have met Max Land last chapter and kind of get to know him, only to see his like sort of heroic sacrifice, knowing like, somebody's coming in and it could be dangerous for Mash. I'm gonna let him go ahead, and I'm gonna do it by being like, hey, I'm the junior student here. I got to look out for my co-highs. And then as he leaves, just thinking like, Rain, did I do a good job? It's like, aw. And then it proceeds to get the shit beat out of him, apparently. So yeah, that was really really cool.
All right, we're gonna go on to Ayakashi Triangle, chapter 32, Mei Hirasaka. We get a page in this chapter just kind of recapping the events of the last one, the Tsukumogami that Garaku proved to be stronger than, and he was starting to reveal his history with Suzu's past life. And then we go into a flashback to the moment that Garaku was born as the Tsukumogami of a brush. And he's like, I was in a room moments after the painter had passed away, surrounded by his cats, which, okay, makes sense. He's fond of Shirogane. And his narration says, my first thought was, I want to paint more. But it was the last days of the Tokugawa, and it was a turbulent time. I had no one I could depend on, and living among humans was very difficult. I could barely maintain my existence by painting. So he basically started relying on his painting ability in order to steal so that he could survive, and he would steal things so that Chiruzuka Kaio could get whatever he wanted, and he was acting under his protection. And at one point, Kaio told him while he was tossing a skull aside, "These days I prefer this kind of rubbish. With the human world in disarray, there are many who escape and come to my mountain. Human trash, they scream and wail while they run about. Some even so full of themselves they believed they could exercise me." And Garaku admits he didn't really care. Because he didn't feel any sympathy toward humans, because everyone was looking out for themselves. No one wanted to, trade him painting for them in order to look out for him or give him shelter or food or anything. Some people were even be like, I'm going to cut your head off because assholes. So, and he was like, he figured that eventually he would turn to dust and go into Chirizuka Kaio's dust chest, and that would just be the end because everything dies eventually. But instead, the Ayakashi medium showed up and sealed Chirizuka Kaio away inside the rock that he came out of the beginning of all this. And she, was like, hey, maybe when you come out of there, when I've reincarnated, then we can be friends. And then she's like, oh, you're the brush Ayakashi. Okay, so you were working for Kaio before. What's your name? They get to know each other and stuff. She introduces herself as Mei Hirasaka. And she says, I'll take you to the world you ought to be painting. And she extends her hand to him, and Garaku's like, oh, you're a human, I don't trust you. So she says, well, I'm a little different from most humans. And she summons an Omokage clone and grabs him by an arm with each clone's hand and drags him off to the tree that Garaku had painted in the present time. And she says, this has been my favorite place in like every single one of my lifetimes. I have memories of those times because I transcend this world as the Ayakashi medium. And she kind of forces him to look at the beautiful landscape, and she says, the forest may be getting smaller, but the sea, the sky, and the mountains here are still beautiful, so take a good look. We're all born to add color to this scenery, and that includes you and me too. Everything in this world is a treasure, Garaku. And so Garaku stuck around in the area, and she observed that Mei would help out the Ayakashi. She was nice to them and would heal them when they got injured and stuff. She would work out the problems they were having with humans and stuff like that. And Garaku's narration says this was the last era when humans were still aware of Ayakashi and feared them, and she worked to keep the harmony between humans and Ayakashi. As Garaku, hangs out more, he talks with Mei, and she says, well, I'm happy that you like this place. And Garaku's like, you're always wearing that weird gaudy outfit. And she says, yeah, I'm a shrine maiden in this life. And she explains that she was, different things in each of her different lives. The daughter of a farmer, the daughter of a feudal lord. I always got along with the Ayakashi in the area. And there was a time when I was revered as a god. And Garaku's like, well, how did you get along with humans? And she hesitates and then tells him that in every single one of her lives over 1,000 years of reincarnation, she has never lived past 15 years old because she's been feared by humans, even by her own parents. This time I trained to use my power to try to admonish Ayakashi present danger to humans, but now I'm 16 and I could die any day now. So maybe you can paint me before I die. And Garaku's like, I just want to paint the scenery. I don't want to paint you, Baka. So Garaku admits in narration, I felt it would be over if I ever painted her. Since I'd met her, every day was so beautiful and precious to me. I didn't want to lose her. I couldn't help but turn away from her radiance. And then one day, she is rounded up by some villagers, tied up, and taken away. As Garaku says, that year there were many floods, and because of her special powers, she was designated as the human offering to quell them, and I was too weak to stop them from drowning her. I realized after I lost her that I was in love with the Ayakashi medium, with Mei. And Suzu, in the present, very awkwardly goes, I'm not Mei. And she's like, yeah, I mean, I cried when I saw the sacred tree, but that's it. But Garaku's like, I know you're not her, and you don't remember that, but the Ayakashi medium might remember. And that's why, when you're the completed Ayakashi medium, I want to paint you. So Shirogane and Matsuri are left to deal with this scene of the two of them looking at each other with this new meaning attached between them. Shirogane is like, oh, so that was what's going on with Garaku. And Matsuri going, what's going on with Garaku and Suzu? Wait, does he want to bang her? No, I can't let this happen. I'm paranoid. So that's where the chapter ends. I'm not a fan of this introducing like, oh, there might be someone else who could be Suzu's love interest, because like dude, he's literally hundreds of years older than her. That's weird. But Garaku did not say like, oh, I want to be with you. He's like, it seems as though in the terms of the way he views it, he wants to make up for a failing that he made hundreds of years ago by doing this. So I'm in two minds about this because that worry is in my head because I think that that is probably the dynamic that Matsuri is going to be dealing with. That worry because, you know, Suzu's worried about him and Kuru, so he's going to have someone to be worried about in return to break up their romantic interest and stuff. And I'm sure that, like, eventually it's going to, turn out like, oh, he's not romantically interested in her, and that'll resolve it. But who knows how long we're going to have to deal with that, romantic comedy misunderstanding. So
it's fine. I don't particularly care much for Garaku still. Like, it's just kind of a thing. So it's just one of those things where, like, yeah, an extra wrinkle into the plot, but, doesn't seem to hold a ton of weight for me.
I like the story that's told in the flashback. I do feel like it could have had a little bit of a better stuck landing, maybe, in terms of, like, when it was brought into the present, it could have hit a little bit harder, because it's just like, and then she was sacrificed. Yeah. But that's where we are for now.
All right, Nick, let's talk about Black Clover, page 282, Black Guardian. So we are introduced to the Union as Asta performs Devil Union. And we see Magic fucking Scales guy being like, what? All the magic? He just erased it? Cut over to Yuno, who's like, hey, unfortunately for you, the Clover Kingdom still has that guy. And we see Asta's new Devil Union form. Nick, give me your thoughts on it.
It's stupid.
There we go. All right.
It's Garbo.
So Asta basically notes, like, all right, at this point, our Devil Union only lasts 5 minutes, so we have to take it down instantly. And I love it because Asta reaffirms me here because he addresses Magic Parliament guy as, hey, Magic Parliament guy, watch me. The guy is not important enough to have a name. Watch me, because I'm gonna, and everyone's like, what's happening? Join forces with the devil and protect this kingdom. And everyone sees, like, the visage of, like, a devil's shadow kind of hovering in the sky. If only they knew inside was what kind of looks like a 12-year-old wearing, like, a Transformer costume or something like that. Like it's weirdly bulky around the shoulders and the legs.
It's the shoulders that really kill it for me. They look so stupid.
And everyone's like, oh, no. Rebecca, who's not an important character, says, it's Asta. We get, like, a collage of the various kind of tertiary, or I guess quadrary supporting characters, basically being like, I know that person. I know them too. Yeah, it's Asta. And everyone's like, go Asta.
Secondary.
Yeah.
Quaternary.
All right, there you go. Yeah. Everyone's like, wow, this thing is crazy. Like, the demon is powerful. It's an enormous mass of supercharged magic. It repels all spells to existence and uses primitive, repetitive attacks to crush and mow down everything. Basically, they're like a maxi player in Soul Calibur. You just keep fucking nunchucking people into the air with that same one button that does like 6 combo hits. It's really easy. But the Wizard King also says, however, for that very reason, it has no way to block anti-magic attacks. Now, Nick, this is interesting. I think this is the first time we've seen an antagonist who is inherently weak to the fact that Asta has anti-magic magic.
You're right. It's never happened before.
No one's done it before. So Asta...
having anti-magic in a magic series comes up incredibly rarely in Black Clover.
So Asta cuts straight through the demon. We see it fall to the ground, and Asta goes, yes! But then we see Sabretooth basically going, oh no, if this keeps up, he's gonna... Mr. Nature Boy Ric Flair is gonna... So Asta's like, okay, let's head for the Spade Kingdom. And that's the chapter.
I'm glad that at least they did introduce the time limit thing, so that it's like, okay, Asta doesn't just win everything. At the very least, there's a limitation to this. And now that he's entered this demon bond form, whatever, now he's also traveling, so that's probably not going to work out too well. There's also some good artwork in this chapter, I will admit. But Asta's new design is stupid. But that's okay, because new form designs are almost always stupid, Chris. Especially when you're basically doing the Naruto thing where you bond with the creature inside of you. Remember how stupid Naruto's tailed beast form is? Like, that's it. Yeah, that's, and you know what? Asta's new form is better than that because it's not pure white on the page.
I don't care for Asta's new form aesthetically, but to also be completely honest, I don't care for Black Clover aesthetically. It doesn't look like a good series to me. I don't like its artwork. So, water's wet. I don't know what you want to say.
I will be shocked if there are diehard Black Clover fans out there who don't think this is awesome.
Yeah,
I would love to hear the opinions of people who normally love Black Clover and don't love this.
Yeah,
because it seems what you would want.
Yes,
to me. So
yeah, and I totally this isn't me trying to shit on it. It's just I don't like it, but I don't like any art in the series. So aesthetics are different for different people. As for the rest of the chapter, it's fine. Asta shows off his new form. He has to get to the Clover Kingdom. Apparently, I'm wrong. That's not Nature Boy Fairy's or Sabretooth he's talking to. It's one of Ric Flair's demons. Which makes sense. He's in a double union with Sabretooth right now, so he wouldn't be outside of it.
By the way, it is after quaternary. It is quinary, centenary, septenary, octonary, nonary, and denary.
They are probably more octonary characters now that I think about it. This fucking Kirsch and Soul. Fuck, who cares? If we were gonna do that name this character thing in Black Clover, those Kirsch would be the first character you show, and both of us fuck, I vaguely remember this dude at some point, but I don't remember what he does.
Oh man, there are some characters from that Royal Knights test thing that were introduced then that are way more forgettable than those, though.
Yeah.
So that'll be our Black Clover character tier list, by the way. Not like best to worst, but most to least forgettable.
I definitely know Asta. S tier.
Yeah, exactly.
Gray, I'm not so sure on. Sometimes I mix her up with Gordon. So
you said Gray, and I was like, Gray's a fairy tooker. Oh, right.
It should be based off of just the names, not even seeing a picture of them.
Yeah, no images at all. No hints of what kind of magic they do or anything. All right. One Piece, Chapter 1004, Millet Dumplings. Well, we've had a lot of chapters recently focusing on just the rooftop battle that's been going on between Kaido, Big Mom, and the Supernovas. And then we started to transition out of that to the other battles, and now we are in the thick of those stuff that's going on in lower levels. And guess what? It's cool too.
Yes.
So, we start things off with Speed, the horsewoman that I'm going to say Otoko befriended.
Yes.
Otama befriended, even though that's a lie, kind of. She fed her one of her millet dumplings, and now she's friendly to her.
I like to think, because I know some people were like, is this kind of like mind control? And I like to think, because all the Smile users are Zoan users, so they're half animal users, that this is the animalistic side of them, where in the same way to show a dog you're friendly, generally feed it a treat or something like that. That usually gets you on their side. So in my mind, it's just the animalistic side of them that gets this ridiculously good treat, and that kind of turns their opinion around. And really, isn't it kind of brainwashing your dog to give it a treat to make sure that it goes out and walks when you want it to and things like that,
It's also brainwashing to put the TV on for your kid.
Yeah.
We do things that are selfish sometimes in order to not go crazy. It's okay, guys.
Yeah.
Speed is passing out some of Otama's dumplings in order to brainwash them. So it's okay. It's nothing like that one time that we used blood magic to control the Diamond King.
So my cosplay thief is saying something in here. It's like, look, they're becoming loyal to Tama, even though she's not the one giving it to them. I agree, but I think if your dog had the sapience to understand what peanut butter is, the dog would be more loyal to peanut butter necessarily than you. I can see, I feel like that's what they're getting at.
Peanut butter sounds great right now. Sorry. We cut to a flashback from Speed's perspective to her talking with Tama and saying like, hey, I want to go to Onigashima, but no one's letting me go with them. And Speed being like, well, I'll help you with that, master. And we see that on their way across, Speed has her own ship, by the way. She's important enough to get her own ship.
Yeah.
That Tama was just producing mass quantities of her millet dumplings, pinching her cheeks over and over again and getting dizzy from it. And Speed's like, you need to stop. You're hurting yourself. But Tama explains, saying, each of these brings another person to our side. And in all my life, I've never seen a Wano without Orochi and Kaido. It's that second part of the sentence that really got me. It was like, this is a child who has been brought up in this evil empire who wants freedom. So it's like, you know what? Fuck it. If she has to brainwash a bunch of idiot pirates, go right ahead, girl.
Yeah. I think it's a very sweet moment of just like, yeah, I don't care how much I search. Each one of these, every time I do it, it's one more person turned to our side. And I was like, oh. Yeah.
So she's like, I want to see a different Wano. With Momo as the shogun, I'm tired of being hungry. I want to eat all I can. Good for you, girl. And so Speed's like, yeah, let's do it. And she's bringing people over to her side. And the more people that she turns over, of course, the more people there are to hand out more of the dumplings and spread like a virus through the gifters and headliners. And Daifugo, the vice warden that was running the prison before, is running around the former prisoners. They're like, what the fuck? Kill that guy. He's like, oh, come on, guys, water us. And yeah, he's like force feeding dumplings to more of Kaido's men and turning them over to Tama's side. We cut over to Frankie then, who was still fighting Rhinoceros.
Sasaki.
Damn it. So he's fighting a Triceratops, trying to shoot it with his Frankie mech and stuff. It's not having any effect. One of his horns nearly pierces the Frankie general's chest, and so he's like throws him aside after that. But Sasaki's men grab onto the mech and hold it down so that Sasaki can puncture him with his horns, and Frankie can't get free. He's like, oh, how are you guys all so strong? But at that moment, Usopp, Nami, and Tama arrive on Tama's mount thing. And Frankie's like, oh, good timing. You're here to help me get these people off me. And Nami and Usopp are like, help us, Frankie!
I love it. I love the scream. Like, oh, thank goodness you guys are here to save me. Help us!
And there's an entire army after them. So Sasaki's like, all right, gifters, okay, block the way behind you. We've got the advantage of numbers. It's true all over the island. But Thomas says, I came here to turn that around. And she declares, everybody, help Fanosuke. And all the people she's turned to her side leap into action. They're like, you got it, master. And people start to turn on each other. And Frankie is now able to move as people get thrown off of him. And he's just barely able to dodge out of the way before Sasaki's charge reaches him. And Sasaki's like, what the hell are you doing? Page One and Ulti are still, not down. So they're like, Sasaki, they've turned against us, so you gotta trample them. And so Ulti leaps into action, and she's like, it seems one of their powers is at work. I think you want me to properly crush your skull this time. And she leaps through the air towards Nami and Usopp. But Nami says, I'm not doing that again. and she has put her climate attack into action. And she says, "Watch out for heart paralysis," which is pretty scary. And shoots a lightning bolt at Ulti, which sends her to the ground. But she's not down for the count just yet. Nami knows this herself.
She needs stronger lightning, Nick.
Not stronger lightning. So the whole Zeus thing not resolved yet, it seems. Usopp does something really cool, which is he's got some Mila dumplings from Tama, and he shoots them with his slingshot into people's mouths and turns them to their side. Awesome.
Yeah.
And Tama calls out to everyone, "Everyone follow us!" And they start to get an entourage following after them, which upsets Sasaki, but that distraction allows Frankie to form Blazing Sword! And he slashes it in a V for victory slash because fuck it, this is great.
I love Frankie so much.
From that, Sasaki has been wounded to where, oh, right, Sanji got caught in that web before. Mm-hmm. He's not doing very well, and he's being mocked but he was able to knock out some people along the way, I guess. I think that's what she's observing, was that he knocked out some dudes on the way to rescuing her. But she says, "Without being able to hurt any women, you never stood a chance. And now I hold your life in the palm of my hand. Go on, call for Nico Robin." And she calls over to a girl who's got a paper over her face with an eye on it, and she says, "Speak to this girl here, and your voice will carry all throughout the castle. Then I'll set you free." Those were the orders from Kaido. And Sanji, of course, demands to know what they're going to do with Robin, and she's like, well, gang up on her, capture her, then mutilate her limbs to incapacitate her, and only when we're done with her, however many years that takes, will we finally kill her. Sanji, of course, is not happy about this, but he says, "Underestimate Nico Robin at your own peril," before we cut away. There's another girl with one of the paper eyes over her face, and she just starts going detected over the performance floor.
Yeah, Bao Yang, I think is her name.
God, how could I have ever expected to win that contest against you?
I think I'm very wrong on the name, but I know she's shown up several times.
But she has spotted the Ayakashi Samurai. They have managed to get away from the roof. They're all beaten up, but they're still alive. And she reports their location to everyone nearby. And so King's like, "All right, they escaped from Kaido. I'm occupied. Is there anyone else who can go there? Head to the treasure room and kill all the samurai for good." That gets passed on to Black Maria via the other woman with the eye over her face. And she says, "I'll go. This floor is connected to the second floor of the treasury. You need me to finish them off." Sanji, of course, is like, "No, I can't let her finish off Kinemon. The others don't go." The scout woman says, "Keep your wits about you, for in that room I see 10. It's hard to make out through the gloom, but someone is attempting to save the samurai. Go now, go quick, and kill. Someone is there."
Indeed. So a couple things. So the first time I read this chapter, I guess I should say even before I read it, I had a friend text me who just caught up on One Piece, and he just texted me, "Holy shit, dude, is that email at the end of the chapter?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I hadn't read the chapter yet, so I was like, "What the fuck?" So I was like wondering what the hell it is. I got confused at first.
I can see why you might.
Yeah, because of the long ears and the nose. And then I was like, shit, Nami did say she needed stronger lightning in this chapter. But then I was like, there'd be no reason for him to be there. So it's not NL. It's the most likely scenario here is that this is Hiyori, aka Komurasaki. She should be involved in this. It would make sense why she would be here.
And we haven't seen her in a while.
Yes, and it's probably just one of her hair braids is what we're seeing. But I did have a moment of finding joy of being like, I mean, I guess it could be, like going down the rabbit hole real far. I was like, if it's not Ino, it could be Jin. This could be Jin's hair.
She's got a bang on the side of her face that matches exactly where that thing trailing down is. So it's probably her.
Yes.
Also, I think it would be a little bit weird for Nami to be like, "I need stronger lightning," and then the guy with lightning powers shows up. Is like, I don't.
I mean, he had kind of an interesting relationship with Nami. Is the only reason why I thought it, but at the same
Did
time,
he?
yeah, like he respected her navigation skills, and I remember like he kept her alive specifically because he was like, I
Okay.
want you to come with me to this new world. Like he basically spared her after killing everybody else, so she had to like go along with it for a little bit to like make it work. Anyways, I like the little details. The fight with Frankie and Sasaki is building up pretty cool. I love Usopp shooting out the little millets out of his thing. I think there's some really cool stuff going on there. I know some people hate Sanji, and I understand why. Because in this chapter, it's a moment of
Mhm.
like you're intentionally kind of doing this for your morals, and yeah, it's annoying. I think the thing that really would annoy me is if this doesn't result in Sanji going past his barriers and breaking his code to do this, then this is just a repeat of what happened in
Mhm.
Enos Lobby, like almost right
Right.
down to it. I'm sure similar to Enos Lobby, where it was very frustrating, I'll probably forget it when he has a super cool fight with King or Queen. I'm sure it will happen, but it is a very frustrating moment right now because you're just like, it's like, I don't know, your crew, like people are dying. Like, I like it's just one of those things where like I get why people get very frustrated with them. So, I totally get that. But I am super fucking hyped for the clearly built up fight now with Black Maria versus Robin. I am
Yeah, I mean,
fucking
she flat
hyped
out
for that.
said like, "I'm going to butcher that woman." So if they never meet, that'll be a letdown.
Yeah, no. I mean, some people are even theorizing that the woman in the room who takes the note is Robin. I mean, she does kind of look like her from afar, but it could be
Well, she's a
something.
woman in One Piece, so.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty dope.
Yeah, all right, that is it for Weekly Manga Recap. Let's name our favorites for this week. Favorite series and MVP.
My favorite series I'm going to give to Nine Dragons Ball Parade. I think of all the series this week, that was such a complete, enjoyable chapter that I really came away with like the feeling of this was really fun, and I enjoyed this, and I'm glad I read it. Like it made me very happy.
Yeah, I'm going to complete our battery, Chris, and repeat that sentiment because it was the chapter from beginning to end that I felt was the most complete and good all the way through. There were some good chapters this week, but almost all of them I had little mixed thoughts on, or not everything in them was really good, but this was a very solid start. And I don't know. I feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment from here. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
I feel like we were kind of excited about the first chapter of Beast Children as well. Not to the same extent, but I'm
Not
just like
nearly. No.
I'm just waiting for that fall down. My MVP I am going to give to, oh god, I'm blanking on his name now. The new not Mashal, Magu-chan god.
Okay.
Gutal or
I was
whatever,
like,
Grawl, whatever his name is.
the adamant got.
It's
Oh,
like
damn.
Gutal or something like that. Ninja's gonna know.
Gula? Gula. Gula. That was it.
Gula. Yeah, Ninja's smart. He's gonna be able to suss it out. Gula.
Like,
I thought it was a fun introduction for that character, so I think it really worked in that way, and I
for the
had fun
re-
with it. We actually had a lot of really good characters this week too, so
he
there was
did.
like a lot of competition. I consider Koseki and a couple other characters.
Suika, I considered.
Yeah, so we Tama.
I I considered in a weird way Toya because
Yeah.
he, his torment carries that chapter. But I am going to go with
Okay.
Otama, for this because I feel like I've really turned a corner on that character. Not, I mean, I didn't ever really hate her, but she was always just kind of like, sort of like, oh yeah, she was involved in this. And now that she's been brought back into the proceedings, and it feels
Yeah.
like, oh, I did not expect her to play a pivotal role in this conflict.
Yes.
But when you think about it, she's the perfect person for this exact problem that they're dealing with this huge numbers advantage, to instead turn it over to their sides, presuming that she has, enough dumplings that she can produce to make a difference. And the conviction she showed in this chapter was really, really endearing. So.
Yes. In that way, the audience agrees with you. Tama is their MVP as well, and Magu-chan got a destruction was their chapter of the week. But there was, I'll note, there was votes for like pretty much every series for chapter of the week. I think this was generally a pretty good week.
Yeah. Barring a few of the newer series, I think that there were mostly positives this week. Mm-hmm. So that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everybody. We want to thank you all for joining us for the show. We record live here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesday evening, starting around 7:30-ish Eastern Time. But to stay updated on exactly where we're going to start the show, you can follow us on social media. On Twitter, the podcast's account is @WMR Podcast. Your hosts are @RoloT and @NickFTime. And we'll send out tweets and word to the Discord channel when we're going to start the show. The Discord channel is a great community that we have. You can use that to find the Google Doc that Ninja X3i maintains, which keeps track of all sorts of statistics and recommendations that we've done on the show. And also, there's just a great community on there. Yes. You can talk about series that are running, recommendations we're talking about, thirst for various different things, of which there are many in our community, but we love you all. And weekly games on Saturday morning of Among Us, weekly Among Us.
Yeah, and I've been seeing people after the games seem to just hang out and chat too. So, it might be a place to just hang out and have fun.
Yeah. And we would also like to extend special thanks to Milo Jack Stillitz and Mrs. Del Cheddar for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. And Steve Mann, tire cut artist. You can check out his artwork wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn.
Yes, which is a rare place on the internet. Don't think you're
not as common as it once was, actually.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's gonna do it for a Weekly Manga Recap. It was a good episode and a lot of fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
I don't know how to end it, so I don't know. Do we just talk about wrestling or do we just end it abruptly?
What happened on Dynamite tonight? Hang on. No, I don't want to spoil myself.
Yeah,
I spoil myself every week after we're done on this show. I go on Twitter and people are like, Kenta was on AEW. I was like, fuck you all.
Oh, man. That shit was so cool. Fuck. All right. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for Nick, so we're just going to leave now. Goodbye.